Good evening, everybody. We'll save the pledge until the normal business meeting. So we'll start with the committee of the board. So this is a more informal work session. We have two items on the agenda, 1.1 and 1.2. I want to propose to the board, should we allocate roughly 20 minutes for each, plus or minus? Of course, it doesn't need to take 20 minutes, but that would allow enough time for both, if that's okay.
I mean, it wasn't my intention with the second item to actually have a conversation or presentation, but really to find out if the board wants. to
Oh,
have it.
okay,
So it shouldn't take. 20 minutes.
okay. So then we could spend more time. on the First
I
one.
think
Okay, wonderful. So with that, the first item on the agenda is discuss establishing a formal EPA inspection process protocol for feedlots. Commissioner Elsing, I believe you had initiated this.
Oh, yeah. So I don't think we need to rehash the events again, but just, you know, in light of what happened, I just wanted to bring this to, I guess, to attention to see where we could go with that. And if there was any, and it seemed like there was a common consensus that we wanted to move forward with this. I believe we kind of offset the time frame, waiting for,
Right. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
trying to come back. So I guess that's kind of where we left it, really, is getting your insight and looking to see
Right.
where this all goes.
Yeah, and if I can formally introduce Steve Kranz, he's our
Please.
newest assistant county attorney, and
back.
some of you may
Welcome.
recognize Steve. He was on the school board here in Winona, what, 20 years ago?
Was he the student rep?
Really, you 10 years old at that time?
But I had tasked Steve with, actually, he's also gonna be helping us with the dog matter. And tasked Steve to also look into this EPA and feedlots. And so wasn't exactly sure where you wanted to go with this. What I can say just on the top of my head here is in looking at the statutes too. EPA does regulate certain states. I mean, there are feedlots in certain states, but not in Minnesota. But I think what you're looking at, if I can, try to clarify this, is in terms of what had happened at that farm and our staff being asked to show up at a kind of surprise inspection or a, very little notice inspection, what would be kind of a protocol. So I had asked Steve to kind of dive a little deeper into this. So I don't know, Steve, do you have anything to add to that about EPA and what we might or might not do with interference?
Well, I mostly just looked into how the laws and regulations say it should be regulated, and the EPA has granted Minnesota authority to do its own regulations and oversight, but has to have all EPA regulations as they exist, and could add additional ones if the county wanted to. And the state wanted to. And then the state has delegated that to Winona County under the state regulations that allow counties to regulate feedlots. There's the statute describes something called a permitting authority that can add conditions or requirements or things related to a permit that are not in the EPA regulations or the state regulations. And the MPCA is permitting authority, and I believe the county is probably a permitting authority for local purposes.
If I may.
Josh.
So I think the bigger picture, the avenue I was trying to lead down is, I felt as though that, and again, this is just myself. What I saw was the potential for somebody to be confused as to the position they were put in. Meaning, when these types of things come up and we have somebody in our county that we hired to, in essence, be kind of an arm, an olive branch in a service to our ag industry, which is a very big part of our county. And they get put in a predicament where they say, hey, I don't know what I can do. I've got an authority above us coming to me that says, hey, here's the position we're going to put you in. And so what I was after was looking at safeguarding that individuals, whatever that might be, that they know that they have an open avenue to go to so they don't feel trapped or pigeonholed, or there's clear and precise instructions as to what to do in that situation so that they don't feel compromised or anything to that type of a scenario. So that was really the avenue that I was going down. I really wanted, I believe that, there's always the possibility somebody says, I don't know what to do. So they either do nothing or they attempt to do something out of good faith. And, then that might not be the correct thing to do. So I just wanted it drawn out. There was nothing in that we could find or that I knew of that said, hey, if this happens again, our employees know what to do. So that was the route I was trying to go down a little bit.
Was it fair to say that you wanted, I think the rest of the board is also interested to review what is the protocol and then to see.
Is there one or
Is
is
there
there
a good
one
point?
or
Yeah.
what is,
Yeah, is
right.
there one? And if it is, what is it? And can we maybe look at if adding some steps to it just to protect our staff and
Correct.
Well, the one question I see is who does Winona County staff report to? Do they report to the EPA, federal agencies, or do they report to us as a county and a county board?
Well, they're not employees of the EPA, nor are they employees of the PUC.
Right.
I think, there's so many different, yes, layers of federal, state, local. So what I'm hearing, and I just wrote down here, is what protocols can we put in place to protect our staff?
Right.
and like Josh said, do we have a protocol? And
I
if
don't
so,
think we have a protocol.
what is it?
Is Eric here somewhere? Yeah.
Um,
Um,
One thing, I don't know if it's relevant, but the MPCA considers the county to be working on its behalf
Yep.
in these issues. And I think as far as procedures, it would probably be good to go and see what the EPA's authority is and what authority they're using to come in, given that they've delegated this to the state and the county.
Yep.
That might give a clue as to what procedures would be helpful.
Thank you.
Well, at the end of the day, we report to Winona County. We work under a work plan that's established through MPCA. And I can guarantee you this type of scenario is not mentioned in their work plan of what happens when we have federal involvement. So I think we would yield to whatever county policy and protocol. I think we got caught with a game of who's hiding the ball with this situation because we asking our feedlot officer to go in a situation shorthanded on information, which would have been crucial or I think necessary to be of assistance to either state or federal entities. And that's the real frustrating part, I think, that staff had with this whole experience.
So is there a protocol, Eric?
I think, well, we reached out to administration, said, this is the situation. We're obligated to just matter of fact, and that's the way we proceeded in this case.
Marina and Marshall.
They also reached out to the county attorney's department as well. So I just wanted to make sure that there's an understanding that, from my perspective, I think they did the right thing absent a planning and environmental services director.
Okay.
That it was the attorney's department and myself that they sought advice.
Marshall.
When you're crafting this, I think to me, part of it, a big part of it is a private citizen holding a feedlot permit or anything. Who do I have to allow onto my property to do unannounced inspections? I don't know the answer, but I think as a private citizen, private property owner, I think the agency was very bold in their actions. And, they did, I don't know that they had any biosecurity equipment or anything like that,
Real
just-
deal.
Pardon me?
It's a real deal.
Yeah,
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 it-
and
yeah,
stuff.
it
So
really
I
is.
think that's something we want to protect our citizens of Winona County to being harassed also. If it's undue, if it's not an emergency or anything like that, I don't think this wasn't.
And it has the discourse even in the SWCD meeting that we were in last week and just seeing, now potentially some funding for some county involvement to go help with winter management plans and things like that. There's already discourse to this action that said, wait a minute, hold on here. This, just as you start to trust somebody, now you want to come back at me again. And that's a ripple effect right now. And not just this county, but I was at one of the largest farms in the state this morning, and even that person was well aware of what happened and what was going on and different things that were happening. So I mean, there's a ripple effect to this whole thing throughout the ag industry. So it'd just be really good. My biggest thing is in this scenario is having a protocol so that whoever's in this position, I don't think this is going to be perhaps the last time or something similar to it. I just want to protect that person so they don't feel trapped and they know what to do.
So Maureen and Karen, does a policy exist?
Way it sounds, no.
Okay,
No.
okay. So should we, as commissioners, maybe if in the absence of one, and maybe one will be found, in the absence of one, should we try to give them some talking points to craft one for future consideration? Like Marcia just mentioned, asking or requiring the EPA to check in terms of, any kind of biosecurity, needs. So, and Josh, you mentioned I guess to make it clear, is this a summary to make it clear that this is the EPA initiating this is not the county, that this is the county coming along based on something that a higher government.
When another government entity steps in and starts making demands of that, covertly that our staff do things, that staff knows what they should be doing.
But it can and can't.
What
and
they,
can
what
also
they
cannot
should or
do.
shouldn't do and who to turn to for direction. Again, I don't know the ins and outs, but I can imagine that there's a potential for, hey, we're going to do this, but please don't tell anybody. Well, who can you tell? Who can't you tell? What can you do? What can't you do? And not to put anybody in a predicament. We work very hard to keep good relationships, through government, through the private sector with our ag community. And I just want to make sure that, certain groups don't, because you can destroy that for generations
Very quickly.
very quickly.
Is there other points we should ask ask Steve and others to maybe work into?
Well, again, like I say, not only our staff, but I think our permit holders, what are their rights? Because I think somebody made a comment, well, as a private landowner, go get your attorney. Well, that's the last thing we want is to start an expense of hiring an attorney. I mean, a conditional use permit holder of a feedlot should know what they can and can't, require or request. I don't think that's clear. Because it is private property.
Are there other points we would like the attorney's office and or Marine to consider?
And then, well, can we send the EPA a bill for our county employees' time?
I guess Eric or anybody else, is there anything else from the staff perspective we should ask just to make it, if it's possible, to make it easier and cleaner next time?
I guess so.
Okay,
Carly, just tell them next time, make an appointment. That's a common thing, You want to go see somebody, make an appointment.
Well, if I could, oh, go ahead, Carl. I was gonna, yeah.
was saying one of the things that was really difficult was they totally sprung it on me and they were like, meet me at this gas station, and they wouldn't tell me anything. They haven't shared anything after the fact with me. I had requested the inspection report. They made me do a FOIA request, and that was 3 weeks ago. And I haven't gotten anything from them yet.
Don't keep going, sorry.
I think the hard part for me was I wanted to be there to know what was going on, and I wanted to be there to protect the landowner and, I consider them my producers, and so I wanted to protect them, but I didn't even know what I could do in a way to let them know what their rights were at that point. So I was just kind of going along and trying to help them answer questions that maybe were more technical on the regulation side that the producer didn't know. So I was there to try to help, but they were very confused. They were very scared at that time, and rightfully so. The EPA shows up with 2 people, the MPCA shows up with 2 people, and then the county feedlot officer. You're going to feel very threatened. And so I think being on their side is what I was trying to do, but I don't know if I necessarily helped, but I think having some guidance on what I can and cannot say to them and what they can say, or what I can let them know when I get there, hey, these are your rights, so because I know that the EPA did not want me saying anything.
Well, and it is, if I may, to me, it's finding out what authority EPA had even to go there.
That was the other.
Without maybe a notice or, what.
Yep, so they
no.
did not notice anything, they didn't tell them anything. And then it was confusing because it was under 1,000 animal units, so it wasn't even an MPCA site. They only cite CAFOs, which are over 1,000, so it wasn't even under MPCA's regulation. So I was trying to figure out too, whether they had the authority to just show up at a smaller site.
Right, yeah. and that-
Perfect.
yeah.
Would you disagree with this statement that this could potentially be not just as procedure, but maybe part of the training? You know, saying that as you take the job on, if a new person were to come into Winona County, take your job, and, yeah, you're gonna go farm, right? Would you say that during a training or an orientation or something, this would be something to discuss? Hey, if this ever happened, let's walk through a mock situation, or here's what we need to do, or whatever it is. This could be a procedural and a training aspect at the same time. Is that a true statement?
Absolutely. I think that as the politics of agriculture get more and more amped up, that it would be a safety thing as well. I mean, just showing up at someone's property unannounced can lead to some safety issues in certain aspects. So I think definitely having the insight on what you can do and what you can't do, and having it be a procedure and a written thing, to where we know the proper steps and the proper protocol would definitely help another staff down the line.
And maybe I'm gonna just, so the board understands, the safety that she's talking about, obviously there's a physical safety, but what you have to understand is that in our world today, it doesn't matter organic, conventional, whatever it is, an organic chicken doesn't know the difference between one pathogen to the next versus a conventional. So it makes no difference. So this biosafety thing has been very big. And when you just bring people onto a farm unexpectedly, a lot of times you have to call to even go onto a farm, and are you accepted there? Because a pathogen can wipe out 1 million birds. It can wipe out a whole herd. It can wipe out swine. It can wipe out a
Absolutely.
lot of
It's
things.
definitely a higher priority for the poultry and swine. You know, I can't go to a site for a week prior. So it's, you definitely have to know. And I will have to park far away from a barn and get picked up for some sites because my vehicle has been
Yep.
too close to other
We're
farms.
forced to wash trucks, wash tires, to go in and out of facilities. Yep.
Maybe another bullet point to add, or a point to consider is what can the county say yes or no to? Like Marcia, you mentioned, make an appointment.
Without an appointment.
Yeah, can we even ask that?
Can we
level?
deny it before the request comes in? You know, or when the request comes in, say, I'm sorry, we're not willing to.
Or we need to give everyone a day or two notice, whatever.
Correct.
And maybe we can't tell the MPCA or EPA that, but we can at least look into it.
And I think not only, this is, I definitely want to protect the people that are put in these precarious situations, but as well as the farmer too. And I think if we can show that in agriculture, we're trying to help and protect and to work with, and that this isn't just a, hey, we're going to do whatever we want to you. Again, we gain that, we work so hard to gain that trust, and I don't want to lose it. And it's easily lost.
Absolutely.
So.
Could I make a suggestion, maybe, that, I mean, Steve's done some research. I've got an ag econ degree, so here we go. But is set up a meeting with Carly, maybe, and Eric, I'm not sure who from planning, but for sure Carly, and I know Carly and Steve have already worked, or is it Olivia, you've been working with on the dog stuff. But have a meeting with them, kind of set out some, just, you know, get a sense of what, you know, what we've just talked
That'd be
about.
great.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And then put together some draft protocol,
That'd be awesome.
what's gonna work.
Keep it fluid and build off
Right.
from that.
And my concern too, kind of what Marcia was saying about, it's really a privacy issue. What authority does EPA or MPCA have just to show up? If there's some implied consent in a permitting process, I don't know, you know?
Sure.
It's kind of like, you know, DWIs, and that, you know, you're supposed to give a breath test because you signed some dotted line you didn't know you signed. But, so I think if we can explore that and then come up with a draft of something for the board to consider.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, John?
No, thank you.
And Carly, thank you for what you did. And if it hasn't already been done, I'm sure you have, but just to convey to the farmer that this did not come from the county. I think you probably have said that many times over, but thank you for what you did. Anything else? Let's move on to item 1.2, discuss potential presentation regarding nitrates in groundwater aquifers.
I'm interested to know if the majority of the board would like to schedule a future conversation about groundwater, specifically as it relates to the recent work plan that the state put out about nitrates in groundwater in southeast Minnesota. And I'd like to do it in two parts. First, I'd like to establish sort of some common understanding for the board about the 6 aquifers that go deeper across the county and how the well code was adopted in 1974, 75, and that the well code controls which aquifers new wells can be drilled into. And then Mr. Dunsmore provided some great information earlier it was actually before, I think it was back in December. I got to meet with him for a couple hours and some other staff members, and Dwayne was there as well. And it was looking at the contamination rates of nitrates in wells, but looking at that through the lens of the well code. And it's actually really insightful. And I would like the staff to have the opportunity to make that information public. So that would be my first goal, is to have a presentation so we sort of all have a common understanding of what what our staff thinks about it. And then the second goal would be to have staff, and that would include, I think, probably public health, talk to us about how how this work plan affects the county and how it's going to affect their workloads. And they would give the board an opportunity to provide some feedback on our priorities with respect to this work plan and what things we might want to do. So really what I'm looking for is if the majority of the board, not tonight, but if you'd like to do that at a future committee of the board meeting.
You're asking if we want to explore the possibility of a specific presenter to come in?
Oh, I think probably Mr. Dunsmore and Sheila
And
Harms, so
Sheila,
Ms. Harms.
you're involved also, Sheila?
In terms of being the water planner.
The water.
She's our water planner.
Well, yeah, I'm just curious as to what the presentation is.
It basically would be the background on the issue, the geology, the hydrology of what we're looking at.
Time-wise, though,
I didn't want to do both of those at one meeting. I wanted to.
and Sheila answered some information. So we got phase 2 proposal of the safe drinking water grant. So talking about what we can do. Olmsted is the entity. Olmsted Soil and Water Conservation is eligible to apply for like 100,000 on behalf of 9 county regions. Do we know when we'll know if we're getting that, as far as a local work plan, do we know when we're going to get an answer on that, Sheila?
Caitlin Meyer is submitting that, and it's due this Friday. And for the phase 2, because Olmsted County did phase 1, and then there was one other, the Horizon, they were Southwest Minnesota. They were the only 2 recipients of that phase 1 grant in the past. And now the phase 2 is open, and so Olmsted County and the other group are the only 2 that are eligible to apply for that grant. So, it's a procedurally, yes, they will probably get the money. And so that'll be the $100,000. And Caitlin designed that application to expand beyond nitrates. The phase 1 was just limited to nitrates and manganese for certain areas. So this one is expanded to the 5 major contaminants for the wells. And
This is tapping?
yes, tap in. Yes, so that was the other name for it.
Right.
And so we will be using a lot of the outreach materials that were developed during phase 1, which is the video and some of the handouts that I had. And but the bad thing is they only have $100,000, and we're expanding to the 5 nitrates, so the cost to do the testing will be more per household. And there were 3 extra counties added to it, so it won't go far, but it's still something. And we know that there will be other, pardon?
It's diluted, like.
Yes. So anyway, that's all I know. So once the funding, I think it'll be like July 1st, that next funding cycle, when we could have that available.
All right. And I know, I don't think Wanda is here or on.
No, I don't know if she's
They
online.
have some things.
Oh, she is online,
Okay, yeah,
but
Wanda shared that the local soil and water conservation looking at getting a spectrophotometer. for-
spectrometer.
Yep, and then they've got some cost share
Mhm.
and working on some regional reverse osmosis systems and everything. So
Right,
got a
right.
lot going on.
Yeah, definitely.
Signed. The plan talks about how, so wells that were drilled prior to the well code are by and large not in the well code index.
Right.
Many of them have been added with that township well testing program, but this document says 40% are not. And it tasks the counties with finding them. And so I'm interested to
Right.
know, I'm interested to know what staff. is doing.
Right, yes.
I think there's some work that they may need to do, and I think it behooves us to.
Yeah.
Help them set that.
Well, we do have to
priority.
remember, I don't think my well's on that code. Nobody's ever came in, and I don't
Probably.
want my well on that code. I mean, it is private property
And it
again.
isn't
It's a private-
mandatory.
It's a private property issue, so I mean, you're not gonna get 100%.
Right, we realize that. And Olmsted County has been doing inventory of their pre-code wells for many years, and it has taken many years to do that. And in the WinLAC, we do have some funding from the MPCA that we're going to be using to try and start doing some of this in Winona County. So it can't be done in 6 months or less. We know that. It'll be a multi-year effort trying to get information about private wells and putting them into the index.
I think critical is having testing available, and if people
Definitely.
are concerned, then
Yes.
they should be able to go get it tested and then
Yep.
come up with a plan for themselves.
Exactly.
I think that's critical.
Yep.
So that's the question. I think first,
I'm gonna support this because this would be great discussion to have when it's on the agenda.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chris, go ahead.
oh, no. Yeah, so really this is just I think probably a one working session that our committee of the board to have Ross potentially kind of talk to us about his perspective. And then at the second one to really talk more about the work plan.
Well, I guess I thought it was going to be discussed too, but I think the agenda does read, discuss potential presentation.
Yeah.
That just says, but yeah, I thought it was, we were going to see the.
No.
Yep. So I think that does it make sense to go ahead and do it and to have, so you're suggesting a two-part. So the first part, as I heard you speaking, is like background, foundation, and then the second part would be public health focus.
Yeah, well, the plan
plan.
itself,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's,
But it would
good.
include public health that time, yeah.
All right, is everyone okay with that?
Great.
And can we maybe do it at night meetings? I think more folks would be interested in this. I think the public, some members of the public would be interested in this as well. So I don't know if we could do it.
That pushes it to the end. of March.
Yeah. Is that okay, Chris, or is there a time frame?
Yeah, I don't think it's going away. So.
Okay.
So,
We get a flush.
Yep.
I think we will.
Is that it for that then? So we'll aim for the end of March and make it an evening meeting, and then we'll have Ross and or Sheila present about, and then following that, do you want to set both right away, or should we wait to see how the first one goes?
but let's just do both of them.
Well,
End of March, end of April?
yeah. I mean, again, we have to see if we get the grant, because that will
Yep.
determine what we can do locally and how much we can do locally, and public health is working on it. I don't know if the Tap It program, Clean Water Legacy, that money still, is that where this 100,000's coming from?
The tap in, yeah, is it legacy funding?
Or is it separate funding?
No, the Department of Health. Clean water.
Yeah, okay, all right, that's okay.
Okay, so it looks like all five of us agree that we'll aim for end of March and maybe then the end of April for the follow-up. I think some folks in the community will want to hear this.
Great.
All right, I think, is there anything else for the committee of the board? All right, we'll adjourn until 6 o'clock, at which time we'll begin the normal general business meeting.
Be happy to.
I'd also like to address the board. And while the next person's coming up, if you're watching from home, just double check to make sure that your mic is muted. I think someone might have their mic on. Welcome.
Hey, I'm Olivia Hansen, 860 East King Street. I am a professional pet sitter here in Winona County, and I actually have 4 dogs that have came specifically from puppy mills here in Winona County. 2 of them considerably have extensive physical symptoms. I would say 3 out of the 4 of them have psychological symptoms from being in the puppy mill. I know exactly where they came from. I know I've seen pictures of what they've came from. It's not pretty, and their lives have been affected by this. And I'm sure there have been dogs that have been successful coming out of there, but that's just what I've seen specifically from them. These parents that have gotten them had no idea that they were getting a dog from this facility. They thought they were getting a puppy. Turns out a couple of them actually had physical symptoms. They went back to the breeder here in Winona County. They were like, we can't do anything about that. So it's like you're raising these puppies, but you're gonna just go away once there's actually problems that were actually found from the facility. So it's like, I don't know. It's pretty upsetting that nothing was done about it, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I was wondering, did that start? Okay, thank you. Anyone else care to address the board?
I'm Gail Getzman-Stopa, Big Valley Ranch, 22036 East Burns Valley Road, Winona, Minnesota. I just have to ask, are puppies, kittens, I've been a farm girl all my life, herd animals, are they cows or pigs or chickens? They are not. And Josh, you say that some of us don't have a good farm business. Well, I've been a farmer all my life. My dad was a farmer. We ran a good farm. Our farm is now Valley Oak subdivision. We were inspected at least every other year. Are farms inspected these days? Are they inspected to see if their animals are taken care of properly by somebody? I'm confused. Pets are not farm animals to be slaughtered or treated inhumanely. And if we can't, I used to take, we'd had 1 pet to take care of when we were kids. I can't take care of 10 animals, 10 pets, 10 puppies. I cannot take care of 10 dogs. If anybody else can, God knows I couldn't. And I think I'm a pretty good worker. I had 3 jobs all my life. I just don't see it. I think the board is being irresponsible if they can't send 1 person or 2 people out to look at what's happening in the country, in the farm country. I don't know. We need a little help sometimes. I just think we need to be responsible. Thank you so much for just listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the board?
My name is Deborah Brecky. I live at 150 Pleasant Hill Drive, and I'd like to enlarge a little bit on what Gail said. I have 3 questions. Does the county have someone who is adequately adequately trained to go out and inspect the puppy kennels? And how often does the county expect this person to go out and inspect? And if there is no inspector, why not? Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else care to address the county board? I'll ask it. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Christina Milichenko, 4655 6th Street, Goodview. And I would just comment on the fact that if people are able to make a business doing something within city limits, then I would wonder, if there are the taxes to support the appropriate oversight that would be required. And I remember reading some of the mills had up to 1,000 dogs. So with math like that, you would think it would be possible to make a, funded position that is focused and trained on the well-being of the animals and animals not being exploited for people's profit. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else care to address the county board? I'll ask two more times. Would anyone else here or at home care to address the county board? One last time. Would anyone else care to address the county board? With that, we'll close the public comment period. The first item on the agenda is, the next item on the agenda is approval of the county board minutes from January 23rd.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Elfing, seconded by Commissioner Meyer to approve the January 23rd minutes. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is item 5.1, to acknowledge the receipt of the Planning Commission meetings minutes dated December 21st.
Move to acknowledge the planning commission.
Motion by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Elfing. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent comments and approval of the agenda. Commissioner Elfing?
Like the whole 7. Just for discussion.
So we'll make it that 8.5, if that's okay.
Mhm.
Anything else?
No.
Commissioner Ward?
I would like to pull 7.1 to make a few comments, and then I would like to pull 7.10. It can be at the end also.
That's 8.6.
Although, I'm sorry, 7.1, I know there's a gentleman in the audience with that reference, and I just want to comment
Okay.
about that. So if we can just, when.
You want to move that?
Well, just when Ms. Schulte, yeah, pause and let me make my comment, please. I appreciate it. Otherwise, some discussion though on 7.10, please.
Commissioner Olson?
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Meyer?
Nothing, thanks.
Ms. Holte?
Nothing, sir.
Ms. Sonneman?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. I'll have two comments at the end of the meeting. So with that, then we will need
Move to approve the amended agenda.
I'll second.
motion by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Meyer, the amended agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So then we would ask Ms. Holte to read the consent items into the minutes.
1, approve conditional permit for RRJ Holding LLC. Commissioner Ward?
Yeah, and the comment is here, this is the cannabis retail shop, and it's unfortunate the community members that live in that immediate area are not real thrilled with the idea of having it. It is unfortunate that is zone commercial or community development, I believe, which allows it as a conditional use with conditions, permit with conditions. And we have limited some things by hours and signage and things like that. Where my angst is with the state of Minnesota. The state of Minnesota passed the cannabis legislation. They're working on it now. And it appears that they are totally disregarding local control. They're trying to set the stage. They're trying to limit the options we have to limit it in our own communities. And it seems like it's on a real fast track. And I know Eric Johnson, he said he subscribes to a legislative update, and it's our first day of legislation, and they're already, working on. But local control is not a high priority for them. So if anybody has concerns, please contact your state senators and legislators and let them know your concerns, because it seems like they're taking everything away from us as far as controlling this industry. So thank you.
Thank you.
7.2, approve conditional use permit for Robert Mueller. 7.3, approve conditional use permit for Brian and Morgan Priggy. 7.4, approve interim use permit for Wayne Beachy. 7.5 was pulled. 7.6, approve extension of joint powers agreement concerning financing, occupying, and conducting consolidated functions in law enforcement center. 7.7, approve Minnesota Department of Human Services Amendment Number 5 for grant contract 173184 Children's Mental Health Respite Care Services. 7.8, approve renewal of 2024-2025 Child Support Program Interagency Cooperative Agreement covering administration of child support, establishment of paternity and medical support liability programs. 7.9, approve 2024 solid waste hauler and facility license applications. 7.10 was pulled. 7.11, approve transfer of funds from general fund to Health and Human Services Fund as of 12/31/2023. And 7.12, confirm payment of disbursements.
I would move to approve the consent of business as read.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Meyer, seconded by Commissioner Elsing to approve the consent items. Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent items are passed. The next item is 8.1, receive presentation on housing study.
Mr. Chair, before we continue, could we advise the audience, they can sit out here and watch, and then when it gets closer to their topic, they could come in,
Okay.
just so they're more comfortable.
If they don't want to stand.
Yep, to repeat what Ms. Holte said, if members of the audience would be more comfortable, there's seating outside, and you'll know when different items on the agenda come up. So if you would rather sit and then come back in, please feel free to do that, or just be outside and a little less.
It's audio and visual.
Yeah, there's a TV out.
No need to, just if you'd like to.
Yeah.
And for members of the audience, thank you for coming tonight. I apologize. We all wish we had a bigger room. Just to state what I think you all would already know is if people could, during the discussion, try to limit your conversations and the volume of your conversations. Please, of course, feel free to talk, but just be aware of the people who are sitting around you.
When does this come up on the agenda? How will it be well on?
When does what? We have
Yeah,
we have a lot of issues.
it's a dog breeding facilities. It's coming up 2 items from now. We'll let everyone know. All right, so presentation on housing study results.
Good evening,
Good
Chair,
evening.
board members. My name is Jeff Miller. I'm with the firm HKGI, which is up on the screen on the left-hand side. And Grant Martin from Loci Consulting is also with us on the screen. So he will be contributing to the presentation as we go through some of the slides. This is meant to be a fairly brief overview, presentation of the housing study, the county's housing study, for you to offer any questions or comments you have. And then I think the plan is for you to accept the study at the end. So with that, I'll move on to the next slide, which is my job. So let me do that. Oh, maybe I did do that. So purpose of the study was to have a report that would help inform strategic decision-making for future housing and economic development efforts in the county, and also to provide a foundation for the county's upcoming update of the 2024, or I'm sorry, upcoming update of the comprehensive plan in 2024. This is a housing study that we would say is fairly non-traditional in that it goes further than a lot of housing studies. So in addition to just having a housing inventory with projections, we look into the needs from a land basis And then also analysis of barriers to housing development in Winona County and for the 4 partner cities for this study.
Just for reference, could you name just so people listening
Yeah.
understand who they are? Or is that
There we
coming
go.
up?
No, the 4 partner cities are Goodview, Winona, St. Charles, and Lewiston. Yeah. So overview of the study, we held 3 steering committee meetings. It was a big group, I think, 20, 25, around 25 people. So a lot of people were involved. The demand analysis report, which Grant worked on mainly, was completed in June. We had stakeholder interviews in the summer, housing type survey that was available to the public and was made, the outreach came from the county, but also those 4 partner cities to get people to respond to that survey. The housing development barriers analysis happened after that, so in the fall. And then the draft report was available in November, at which point we met with the steering committee, and then we met with the EDA last month. As far as community input, the steering committee meetings were a big part of that. We also did stakeholder interviews, and that involved the county and city staff. Those 4 cities, we also talked to Rolling Stone. They were on the steering committee as well. And then we talked to developers, realtors, the housing person at WSU. And then the housing type survey was also another part of the community input. As far as the input from the survey, there was 150 respondents. It was open for 2 months. The goal was to have people identify their top housing priorities, and then to also give input on expanding housing types. So the survey was set up to really show people what the kind of the full range of housing types that could be in communities is. Oftentimes that's referred to as missing middle housing, which is an initiative that's been, it's pretty common around the country, I think, that cities are looking at this idea of having more diverse housing types in their communities. And the goal of the survey was to have respondents look at these photos, examples of these housing types, learn a little bit about them, and then express what they liked about the different ones and what they disliked about those. You can see from the pie chart, the representation pretty much mirrored the size of the population of the communities, I would say. One of the questions was, how would you rank each of the following housing types? This is showing how they were ranked. So the top one was twin homes and duplexes, followed by smaller lot detached houses, detached courtyard houses, townhouses, small scale apartments, ADUs or accessory dwelling units, which sometimes are called tiny homes, and then large scale apartments. They're not ranked as 7's bad. It's just, it was, seventh out of 7.
Commissioner
Yeah. So do the sizes of the bars on the page indicate anything to do with the sponsor?
Is it the scale is what you're wondering?
Well, yeah, does it something represent that a whole bunch of people asked for large scale apartments and a lot less people asked for twin homes? Or is it just?
The other way around.
Other way around.
Least desirable.
So what's the difference between a smaller lot detached house
And the dwelling.
and the tiny house, tiny houses? What's the difference there?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, smaller lot detached houses would be,
What's a detached house?
so it'd be a house.
And
Yeah, so it's a single family.
it's a small lot, so you can reach out to your neighbor.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a smaller lot, and it doesn't mean that it's a small lot necessarily. It means, would you be open to the zoning code of your community reducing that lot size from what it is today? And we work with a lot of communities. A lot of communities have lot sizes that just have not been updated over time. And so or they inherit a zoning code or inherited a zoning code from wherever at some point, and they just never really questioned the lot sizes. So it just means smaller, not small, whereas tiny homes means a lot of things, can mean a lot of things. Typically, it means something that's 400 square feet to maybe 800, so in that range. And those can be, they could be, some cities it's not really, you don't even have to really regulate them. It just, you would have your code oftentimes just not prohibit them. So they could be an accessory dwelling unit. They could be, you know, if a community wanted to allow them, they could just be a regular house on a lot. It's just that they're smaller than some zoning codes allow.
Fictitious American standard that we need 3-car garage. Now they're going 4-car garage and 4 bedrooms and work offices and everything. Other parts of the world live much smaller than we do. Much smaller.
Yeah. So we updated a code for a city that was very interested in tiny homes. And I don't think we actually put the term tiny home in their code. They just changed their code to not prohibit them. So some cities will have a minimum square footage for a building or a house structure, which would prohibit them.
And so with that said, did you look at the city, being the city of Winona as the biggest player? Does their zoning prohibit a lot of these options currently?
Let's see. It may not prohibit them, but it doesn't necessarily make them easy to build either. So a lot of, I don't want to go on about the topic too much, but a lot of codes generally will be single family, 2-family, and then multifamily. And they may have other housing types that are talked about or defined in the code, but oftentimes it's pretty much low density and then apartments. And that's why that missing middle housing initiative is of interest to communities, because it's talking about there's a whole range of housing types that can be in cities, but the codes are really focused on, sometimes multifamily starts with anything 3 units or higher, sometimes 5 units or higher. And that's, you know, a 3 or a 5 unit building is much different than a tall apartment building. So as far as the input, this is just an example of what people said about missing middle housing and what they liked and what they disliked. So I won't go through them, but you know, they're things that aren't surprising, but it's helpful, especially as a planner, it's helpful to hear what people care about and what are those basic things that you want to try to think about if you're going to regulate housing to allow more options. And with that, I'm going to let Grant from Loci talk about the demand he found.
Yep. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is what Jeff kind of referred to as the more traditional housing analysis, where we take an analysis of the projections, the demographics, the incomes in the community. We look at the supply in the community, the inventory, what's being sold, what's being rented, and then we combine that information to provide an estimate of demand across different product types and at different price points. And so what these tables here show, this first one shows general occupancy for sale units in Winona County, projected or the demand for these estimated between 2022 and 2027. And you can see the estimates based on these price points. With the townhomes, twin homes, and single family homes that were for sale units, we provided estimates starting at $275,000 because that is generally the price point at where new construction is being constructed for these homes. We also provided some estimates in the study of demand for housing that would be for sale, new construction at lower price points that would need a subsidy or need a special program to be constructed. But these show the estimates for the general occupancy. And then the next slide, Jeff, if you can move, the next slide shows the are estimates for general occupancy rental units. And we provide estimates here for affordable housing defined as below 30% of where it's below 30% of area median income. Then we provide some ranges for 50 to 60% of area median income, and then some estimates for demand for workforce rental housing and then market rate apartments. And then we provide the estimates of what the rent levels would be and what the demand levels would be for those units at those rents. And then on the next slide, we show the similar estimates, but estimates for senior housing, affordable senior housing, age-restricted for sale housing. Those would be co-ops, townhomes that are age-restricted, age-restricted rental housing, and independent living. That's housing where there's services, either meals or housekeeping services. And then the more service-intensive senior housing, assisted living, memory care. And you can see our estimates for units at those levels.
Commissioner Olson.
Grant, I asked the same question at the EDA meeting, but it begs to be asked again. With the state demographers saying that Winona County's population is going to be declining in the next, to 2045, the next 50 years.
Yes.
Why do we need, can you explain once again why we need all this increase in housing when our population is going down, projected?
Well, this is a little bit different than a projection. This is an estimate of demand. So where there's demand for housing, and demand for housing isn't always supplied. So the projections for that are being done at the state are being forecast for housing units and population growth that's being supplied. So our estimates are are higher because we're providing estimates for demand for affordable housing where households are paying higher, they're paying cost burden level rents. And so there's demand for housing that is affordable for those folks. And so those units are just not in the market right now. So obviously the forecast is that there is a decline in housing units and population over the next few years. You're starting at a little bit of a deficit in Winona County right now. There's not a lot of inventory for sale. There's not a lot of vacancy out there. So we're at a little bit of a deficit for the housing supply. And then there's also a lot of shifts that are happening in the demographics where there's going to be needs for different types of housing that are in the market. And that's the demand we're estimating.
Commissioner Ward.
Did that not answer it? Yeah. A question, if you can go back a slide or two, how much of a person's income are you supposed to spend on housing in Winona County? Because we're not a high wage paying, we're a working class community. So I know for and then that particular slide, affordable senior, how much do they figure a senior on a fixed income? Because I've had associates look at some facilities in the Winona area and they say, I can't afford it. I gotta stay at home in my own house. I can't afford to move into one of those places. So I know you're looking like it's going to be quite a demand, but how much of a senior fixed income are they supposed to spend on housing? They always talk about the low income, 30% of their income. Is it the same? Is it considered the same? 30% of your income should be spent on housing regardless?
What we do consider for our benchmark for this analysis is we use that affordability metric of 30% of your income. It would be considered an affordable level for spending on housing. I've done some other studies and other work in senior living where we sometimes say for some of the higher level services that you might be looking at affordability levels of 50 to 60%. If you're receiving services, if you're getting meals with your housing, it might be okay to spend a higher percentage of your income on that housing. And then for like assisted living and memory care, sometimes we say, a level of spending of 60% of your income would be an appropriate level. For this analysis, we generally use the 30% as a standard to just say housing is affordable if you're spending less than 30% of your income on housing.
But you've got 50,000 in these sheets, so you're saying with income above 50,000 on all those categories. So I don't know if my retired citizens have got $50,000 of income.
So Grant, those age restricted rows there are not considered affordable, right?
No, the top one is affordable senior housing. The ones that are below that are considered market rate housing, and we use the $50,000 and asset number because that's really where those levels of housing are being supplied, those price points. So I mean, I absolutely understand what you're saying. I think that's you're right. There's a large portion of seniors out there that cannot afford some of the market rate age restricted senior housing that's in the marketplace right now. And so that's why we're seeing the levels of demand for affordable senior as high as they are, that 180 to 190 units.
Yeah, and maybe Grant said this, but relative to the Winona context, that AMI stands for area median income. So it's that 50% or 60% of AMI is of the Winona area's median income, not some other state number or something like that.
Our location.
Do you want
So
to finish this part, Grant?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Sorry. Couldn't tell if there was another question. So this summary provides a summary of that very high level number of estimated demand, which includes some of the affordable housing that is not being supplied by the market now. So these numbers are very large because we're bringing in some of the affordability, the cost burdened households that are in here. But when we bring these all together, these are the estimates of the housing by type of housing, where it's single family, townhomes, twin homes, apartments, and senior housing, and how those are all grouped together. For the next analysis that Jeff's going to talk about, we did use dwellings per acre to provide some metrics for understanding how much land is available. And these dwellings per acre were based on examples in the marketplace that are currently being provided, either apartments that are being built, single family homes, and how many dwellings per acre there are there, the multifamily townhomes and twin homes, duplexes, those units counts there. So these are based on examples and densities that are in Winona County now.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, so those 5.4 dwelling units per acre for single family homes, that also aligns generally with densities that are allowed in a zoning code for that type of housing. Same with townhouses. A zoning code that allows townhouses would be in that realm of 10 units per acre, or should be. So as Grant said, we're going to go through the next handful of slides pretty quickly if I actually get it to, there we go. So for the county, now it's probably going to flip on me, but for the county, what we did with this housing study is to figure out how much land the county would need to accommodate the demand, the housing demand. So this is saying in the 5-year period, the first 5-year period, 22 to 27, about 119 to 175 units are being demanded in the county. And that would be about 33 to 54 acres of land. And then it has it by housing type. So typically what happens is the cities would have enough land for single family identified in the zoning code or their plan, but would not have necessarily enough land for townhomes or apartments that's vacant or available for that kind of development. And so that's the county overall. And we do have it by city. The 4 partner cities, we did the same analysis. So we're showing for the next 5 years and then the 5 years after that out to 2033, the demand, which of course Winona would be the largest. So it's showing that the city of Winona needs 53 to 63 acres over the next 5 years, and then another 18 to 21 the 5 years after that. And so we have those acreages by the 4 cities. And all this is in the report, of course, so St. Charles and Goodview as well. And then we also did the remainder of the county. So that would include other cities or rural.
Jump over slide. Lewiston one, I was gonna take a look at it. St. Charles one.
Quickly on St.
Yeah,
Charles,
went
but not
real
very
quick.
long.
I just wanted to see the.
Yeah, I can go back. I can try to go back.
But somewhere when you interviewed these, you can look at that. Somewhere when you did these interviews, did you ask people they want to live in town or they want to live in the country? Is that identified? Are they asked? Or is that just an assumption that they're going to live in town?
We didn't ask that. We did ask which housing types they felt were appropriate for rural areas. So that would have depended on probably who was responding. So somebody living in the rural areas probably responded to that.
One more quick question. The common consensus here is that there's a large initial push followed by a quite large fall off. Seems to be what's happening.
Yes.
Trying to understand that, is there that big of a demand in all these communities now? Or is it, this is a little more of a, hey, we'd like to see this to entice people to come. And then if we can do that, things would slow down? Or is this reflecting what Commissioner Olson talked about with this decline? And are these cities aware of that decline?
Yeah. So, and Grant spoke to this, but there are projections at the country, at national level and the state level out to 2050. It's either 50 years or 2050. There's long-term projections out there, and the growth of the country and the state is projected to slow down significantly. And Minnesota's population is the growth is projected to slow down significantly. There will be counties and cities that grow, but a lot more counties are projected not to grow or have less population. So, and Winona County is one of those counties. And so that's the projections. Part of what's happening with the next 5 years is with the recession back in the 2008, 2010 area, if you look at production of housing, starting then going through the next 12 years up to now even, the housing production never really took off for about 10 or 12 years. And so there's this backlog of housing that's needed. And so that's kind of fueling this. And, Grant was explaining that the demand numbers look high. Part of that is that there's still a backlog of housing development to get caught up. And if you read about housing in the state, some of the numbers are pretty amazing, how much housing is really needed because of that slowing of development over that many years.
Commissioner Olson, sorry, one second, Bill.
And Grant, maybe you can chime in. So where are these people? Where's the demand? Where are they right now that we're lagging? Where are they going to come from? Are they here and then we don't see them? Are they?
So that's some of it. Some of the household formation has not occurred yet, because we've got people who are staying, living with their parents. So that's part of it. So some households are just not being created. We've got households that are living in homes that are not affordable for them. So we need to either create housing to provide that level of affordability, which is one of the challenges here. So those people are living in homes and they are here. So the numbers that we have estimates for on the affordability and where that demand is for households who are right now spending too much of their income on housing. So that's why some of those numbers are in here, and we're seeing those numbers. When for the second parts of the study period, we're kind of assuming that a lot of that demand that's there right now will get satisfied with building. And then as we move into the later periods of the analysis period, that period from 2028 to 2033, and then on into the later 2030s, that some of that demand is just going to get satisfied as more product gets built. And so that's kind of the assumption there. That's why it does slow down. Although the forecast in the study for senior housing is still stronger relative to general occupancy, because seniors will still be aging into needing that type of housing up through 2033. And then after 2033, there's going to be a pretty big drop off in demand for senior housing as that large cohort moves through the market.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a polite way to put that.
Commissioner Meyer?
I assume that this feeds into the story that Mr. Bambanek tells us every time he talks to us about people who bid multiple times over years to try and get a house and can't get it. So that there's all this pent up demand. They're not living here. Maybe they're living in Alaska, or they're renting and they'd rather be owning. I mean, that's what I hear.
I just do a quick check-in. I'm sorry. I'm trying to read the room. We have 50, 60 people here probably for a different issue. Jeff, I don't want to rush you, but do you have a sense how much more time you're going to be? Only because
Well,
I might want to suggest that we table it, stop, and then get ahead to the why most people are here. So I just want to, but do you have a sense how much more time? And I don't want to rush you because I heard this presentation at the EDA, but I want all the commissioners to hear it, but just doing a quick check-in.
We could get through it in the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Really good information.
I'm just trying to, for the consideration of everyone who's here and outside the room. We should have, this is my fault, we should have changed the order of the agenda. So,
We appreciate it.
well, for one person versus 60 people.
They all got houses to go to.
Yeah, so I will go through the slides, and then it's up to you if you want to ask questions or discuss anything. So the other part of the study that's not part of a traditional housing study is to look at what are the barriers at a more detailed level to housing development. So we looked at is there sufficient land out there to accommodate the demand? What's the quality of the data, the mapping for identifying that land, vacant land, existing land uses, developable land? And then we looked at the zoning code for the county and the 4 cities as far as what are the housing types allowed, lot sizes, building heights, all that stuff. We looked at the zoning maps. And then lastly, we looked at the comprehensive plans for the county and the 4 cities. So key recommendations, and then we'll just go over the tables quickly, and they're in the report. So the key recommendations for the county are identification of vacant and developable land, both in the cities and rural, if that's where the housing demand is. And that's not an easy thing to do. So what we're saying is there's a need for the existing land use map to be more descriptive of what's out there today in the county, including potential land for housing long-term. Address housing development within cities. The county's comprehensive plan has urban expansion areas. There's more needed to be done with the comprehensive plan in those areas. And then separating the existing land use map from the future land use map in the comp plan. Right now, there's just a land use map in the plan. It's not either of those things. It's just more general than that. So that would be helpful for dealing with the housing issues. Updating the comprehensive plan, the future land use planning. Having the comp plan address the county's need for a range of housing types. I would say the current comprehensive plan really doesn't go into housing in great detail, and it doesn't talk about housing outside of low density housing. And some of that would be working with the cities and helping the cities to figure that out, because that's where a lot of obviously the higher density housing would occur. And then again, that need for a future land use map that has a housing perspective to it. Let's see. The zoning code. Let's see. The zoning code and the zoning map of the county should be updated. including the allowed housing types and the lot standards, and then aligning the zoning map with the comprehensive plan. 4 is partnering with cities on housing development planning. So support the cities in doing updates to their zoning and comprehensive plans so that housing can get built. The county has GIS expertise and data that the cities are using, so providing that assistance for the city so that they're using that really well. Assisting with annexation and infrastructure and redevelopment planning, and then leveraging the additional state housing funding that's recently been approved, or I should say last year. And then Grant's going to talk about the last one, and then we'll just show the tables quickly.
Yeah, so the last one is you have established the Winona County Housing Trust Fund. We've identified that there's housing need across the spectrum of housing, but we think these 3 areas would probably be the strongest to focus on. Multifamily housing development, both workforce and affordable multifamily rental, home buyer assistance and education, so helping sort of that for sale market, provide support to that area of the market, and then home rehab loans programs. There's definitely an opportunity to strengthen the existing stock of housing that you have in the county. The next tables that are in this presentation really just kind of go through some of the detailed recommendations with the barriers identified and then the strategies to approach those. We're not going to walk through those. And then the last table shows some resources that we've identified. I think it's the next slide, Jeff. Yeah, some resources that we've identified that could possibly help with some of these. There's some programs that are out there. There's some solutions that we've just kind of did a little inventory of. These are programs, these are products, these are approaches to help address the supply of these housing types.
Commissioner Olson and then Commissioner Elsing.
So Grant, one of the results of the 2016 housing study was showed that the wages of people in Winona, this was in the city of Winona, were 35% below the state average for comparable industry across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So do we need more affordable housing or we just need more money?
Pretty sure, was it the mean or was it the?
It was across all levels.
It's skewed really fast if you're looking at a mean versus a median.
And this is for the city, right?
That was the city's
Yeah.
housing study, 2016. I think it was page 38, if I'm correct.
Commissioner Elsing.
You know, that's a good question. If you had higher incomes, that might be able to spur additional development. So I'm not sure which comes first. I think some businesses might say we need to have the housing to be able to attract people to the jobs. I think it's you bring up a very good point that perhaps there needs to be more job creation, and that would help solve some of this problem. Yes.
Yeah, I believe the job creation comes with the demand. I mean, we can look at Olmsted County. We got a pretty great example next door. So the jobs are there, people will come. And making it affordable. And I think we see the overflow from that coming to us. And it was interesting to see the Lewiston having I couldn't quite do all the math in my head quick enough as I flipped through the sides, but I think it was twice what St. Charles needed per capita. It could even be 3 times because Lewiston's 1,600, St. Charles is roughly 4,000. They were asking for several hundred houses, very similar to what St. Charles was. So it's interesting to see that. Second question is was the 40 grand well spent? Yeah, potentially it could be. Based on this is some really good information. The last thing I had to say is knowing developers, people that I've known for many years, some I've only known for a while, and being a former mayor, facing this small town issue of bedroom communities, still living in a smaller town, maybe the most fastest growing town in the county, but nonetheless, the same problems still exist. what attracts a developer to come to your area? That's the number one thing. Because they all look at this, the amount of money they've got to front and put up and to develop something out, it's not very lucrative, and that is their biggest problem. And including Altura, including even in St. Charles, it is Lewiston's fighting it. I've sat on the EDAs, I've talked to the mayor many times, I own property there, I know. And so the biggest thing that I run into is who's gonna fund it? And right now, a lot of that is privately funded, and it is not attractive. Why go put the same money into a lot in XYZ when I can go right over here and I could probably fill that lot in a fourth of the time? But it costs the same per foot to put the water and the sewer and the blacktop in. That is the real issue, and why we're seeing our bedroom communities not grow, because the developers are saying, I've got a quicker return on my investment here, and I got to go through the same stringent standards. In fact, a lot of times, probably even less. So that is the bigger thing. We can have the demand, but when we look at the rural markets, why are they so inflated? Because people want to be in smaller towns, I believe, but the cost to actually produce that parcel is significantly higher for a developer. And so if we can address that somehow and make it friendly for these developers that probably aren't going to see the recoup on that investment near as fast, that tends to be the feedback that I get, is why do I want to invest in this small town when I can go over here and do it just the same?
Thank you. Commissioner Ward.
Just a quick question. So when we talk affordable housing and everything, all this stuff seems to be traditionally stick-built houses. Does your report get, and I get things all the time about different model homes you buy and they bring it in on a truck. My mom always talked about in her little community, that was a Sears and Roebuck house. And you used to be able to buy a house through Sears and Roebuck and
I
they
owned one.
deliver it. Yeah, they deliver it, they put it together. So are we looking at any other models other than stick-built structures?
Well, so, yeah, the zoning codes should allow those to be built. I mean, there is cases where zoning codes will say, you're talking about modular houses? Yeah,
There's some beautiful
yeah.
homes or whatever you want to call them that you can, but you're kind of always, it seems like these housing and affordable housing is stick-built from the ground up.
No,
No?
affordable housing could be modular. Yeah. Yeah.
The issue is a lot of times in the private developments, if I can jump in here, is oftentimes the person that develops it also has some sort of demand to put the house up because they're trying to recoup their investment.
Right.
And we see that, and I can't fault them for that. Because the cost, again, to put a linear foot of pavement in and that is the same as a high development. You're not getting a discount to go into someplace that has a lower quality or a lower spec as to what can happen.
Yeah.
So it
Right.
makes it difficult, and then you add the tax base, the ever increasing tax base on it. It's hard, and I think those are the big things to address. We know what we need, but it's how do you entice developers to put the money into it?
Thank you.
Free money. They're all looking for-
That's all we have unless Lou, you want
very
to
good.
add anything?
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
very
Thank
much.
you,
Very
Grant.
good.
And thank you to the
Thank you, Grant.
four other partner
Thank you.
cities who part of this. It was 40,000 divided between the different partners, correct?
Looks
No,
like
it's
it was
40,000 from the county and then
22,500
22,500 from divided by the 4 other partner cities.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lou.
It was
40.
American Rescue Plan.
Yep,
Yes.
ARPA funding.
Yeah, not levy.
Thank you.
Not levy, but still tax.
Okay, so then we,
Look at how much-
Ms. Holte and Lou, so at this point, we would ask for a motion to accept the report. Is that what we were looking for?
We weren't actually, but if you would like to, that we'd be happy to have you do
I
that.
thought you-
He did mention it, but that wasn't part of the request. It was just really to receive a presentation on the study and acknowledge that it's been completed.
I think that fulfills that, correct?
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is 8.2, discuss My Energy Broadband.
Request a little.
Right now, or?
Well, after that.
Okay.
Okay, go on, sweet.
You want to switch the dog breeding one?
Well, what's the potential time?
No, let's do this.
How much? do you have
I can be 10 minutes tops. I just want to inform you of what our initiative is, and I would like to come back at a later time and discuss this in more detail when you have time.
Okay. And you also need more time for other information to.
Correct.
Correct. So let's aim for 10 minutes or less. And then we'll take a short break in between this and then the next item. So we'll give people and the board a chance to take a quick break. So we'll aim for 10 minutes, 7:15 we'll say, and then we'll have a short break, 5-minute break after that.
Okay,
All right.
and where do I point to?
I don't know if you have control.
Okay, I'll really rock and roll here. Okay, just keep going and I'll tell you when to stop. First of all, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you. My name's Brian Cranbeer. I am the president and CEO of My Energy Cooperative. We provide electric service in southeastern Minnesota and northeastern Iowa. And I'm here tonight to inform you that we are also looking at a broadband initiative to build out fiber to the home to all of the rural areas and underserved areas of Winona County. We're in the process of...
I'm sorry, Brian, maybe Heidi, could you go back to that map? I think a lot of people don't realize the service area. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you, Commissioner. But you can see we cover a great share of Winona County and a lot of the areas that are very rural in our service territory. In fact, we average less than 4 members per mile of line. So keep going. I'm going to go right to the area that would be the backbone of the industry to give you an idea. It's important for us in operating our electric distribution system to have the communications of fiber to the home to all of our substations in normal operation. It's also a great benefit that we feel that broadband extension is probably the biggest economic development opportunity that we have in southeastern Minnesota and northeastern Iowa right now with attracting workers. You're talking the opportunity to do work at home. You're talking about telehealth. You're talking about distance learning. It is the future communications network that we have, and even attracting workers to what we call God's country down here. But it also has its challenges because there's a lot of rock, there's a lot of hills, there's a lot of coulees. What makes it extremely difficult to extend broadband in those areas. The big thing is we also have an infrastructure with a lot of poles and distribution that we're able to use aerial fiber that we believe is going to be able to do this more affordably. So you can keep rolling on here till you get to probably the map. Talked about that. Keep going. Darien Power is, you can go to the next one, is also in the process. They won a middle mile fiber grant and extending fiber optic cable across their transmission line that's going to go through the heart of Winona County, which is also going to be part of our resource to affordably build this thing out. Again, our goal is connecting broadband customers, connecting our infrastructure, our substations, but also to try to utilize state and federal grants. And that is a very great opportunity for us right now to partner on and to be able to go forward. Go to the next one.
Quick question.
Yes.
Is aerial fiber just mean by the pole?
It's actually the same type of fiber, but it's just strung on the overhead. Yeah. Okay. We may have to make our distance a little shorter to be able to handle the spans and the distant weight, but that's something that we would incur on our operation. Again, it's a quality of life. I think it's our future to build out on these rural areas and economic development. Next slide. These are the successful programs that we've already attained, and we're building out in a series of rings to ladder things out. And we have been tremendously successful in getting reconnect grants, which are federal loan and grant, and also the border to border program, and also our service territory in Iowa, a very similar statewide network. Next. We have a partnership that's also, not only has My Energy been around for 85 years, we have 2 partners that have already built out fiber to the home in their individual ILEC networks, or independent telephones, Mabel Cooperative Telephone and Spring Grove Communications. So we know what we're doing, and we've got a good track record in history. This is an important map. The unserved areas are the pink areas there. That shows you all the areas of Winona County that do not have fiber. And the green areas are areas that are served. And if you look at that, you can see it's the populated areas that have that service. You see the Lewistons, you see St. Charles, you see some of the developments that we have there. We're looking at it from the area of building out everybody. Next slide. You can go to the next one too. There are a large percentage. In 2018, Winona County was rated 15th across all the counties in the state for access to 100 by 20. If you jump to 2023, we've actually dropped to 39th. And that's just a matter of a build out and priorities and counties and partnerships with providers being able to develop this. And we feel that, again, this is very important and we want to be a partner with Winona County and taking on this next task. Next. You can go to the next one. This is 25-3. It just shows very similar. Next slide. This is an important map. It shows that 16,109 customers or residents in this area have fiber to the home or a quality service. Underserved are 431 and unserved there's 2,718. So there's over 300 residents in Winona County that do not have what we consider adequate fiber to be able to do a work from home, do a distance learning, to do that kind of quality. Next. This is kind of our map that we're working on right now. We're working with an engineering company. We would probably start at the Fremont South area and continue to ladder this thing, building rings to get across Winona County to make this thing happen. I will note Centec, they're building out their ILAC. They were successful in getting that award. So that is an area that is going to be built out that I think is another asset for Winona County for an existing provider. Next. Our estimated cost right now at a very high level, and you can tell the initial piece of information we had was $52 million. Right now it's $62 million to build that out. What we need to do as a partnership is to take advantage of some of this federal and state opportunities, the BEAD program, Broadband Equity and Access Development, and also USDA's Reconnect program. And the BEAD program is going to be highly competitive. There's some grants potentially up to 70%. We don't think they're, because of density, going to reach that. But regardless, even a 50% grant is substantial. In order to get points in that competitive grant process, it is helpful for us to get support, financial support from the county. And I've just listed a couple examples that we have there. We feel that it's going to be a hybrid process. It's going to be a little bit of BEAD money. It's going to be a little bit of Reconnect that we'd be looking at to make this whole process happen. Next slide, please. Again, we're looking at this build out. We want the county's support, and I hope to come back with more information on our engineering study. But I just wanted to let you know of this important initiative that we're undertaking, and we're looking forward to a partnership opportunity with Winona County to make this thing happen for the benefit of everybody in our county and in southeastern Minnesota. So I think the last slide kind of wraps things up. Yep. Okay.
Commissioner Elfman, Commissioner Ward.
Go ahead, Commissioner Ward.
So to be fully disclosed, I am a member of My Energy. That's my service area. So I am a member of the Rural Cooperative. And I also am a member of Centec. So this summer sometime I'm getting better fiber to my house. And that's that little part that Brian mentioned in the very east part of Winona County. But I think I did ask Ms. Holte, we have an EDA, we do have some, we have some funds there, and any other funds we have, that we can put this, timing is everything. We gave, they've changed their name now, haven't they? HBC, we gave a big chunk of money. They did some good work with it, but that money's gone. But I would look to see where we have some possible, places we can contribute, and anything we can do as far as, I don't know if we have to do anything as far as zoning and planning or there's any restrictions there. I don't know, Eric's there, but I think we need to, many communities have done this years ago, and we're kind of, like you saw, we've fallen behind a lot of counties, and I think we need to help in any way we can. So I'd ask EDA to look at it, what's any options we have to help, both financially and morally.
Thank you. Other questions or comments?
Is there ever any, when we, obviously as a private sector type business or, a utilities business, when they come to the counties and ask residents to pay. Now, this would drastically help even my constituents. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, I always question, is there any, a lot of times we give money out to make these things happen, and all these grants, it's all taxpayer money. It just left pocket, right pocket, back pocket. Where does it come out of? Is there ever any talk about, especially on a local level where, our ability to match some of these things is a lot more difficult than, say, at a state or a federal level? Through, obviously, this is a paid service. Is there ever any talk about paying back, hey, we'll match the funds, but through subscriptions and services, is there a potential to pay back the initial people that helped fund it? Because My Energy isn't, obviously wants to make money. Otherwise, they wouldn't be interested in this. So is there any potential for that?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. The big thing is the areas that we have there, they're rural. They're less than 4 members per mile of line. And the reason why there's no service there is because it's not profitable.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
And I get
and it's, we're in it for the long term, meaning the 30-year, 25-year look at return on investment. But I share, I would welcome an opportunity to be able to look at paybacks and contributions to recognize, it's a partnership.
Yeah.
And partnerships help each other. And I think that's something that we would be more than happy to investigate. We've done similar projects you've seen on the map there, City of Preston and others. They've donated land. They've done things in order for us to get the points to show the local government is supportive of this and initiatives. And we will in turn ask for letters of support for, City of Winona, or not City of Winona, rural county residents, My Energy members. But this not only includes My Energy members, this includes all members that live in the rural areas that don't have internet. That's what we're looking at. So some of the rural Xcel Energy customers, this would also include that. But again, to be respectful of your time, I just wanted to inform you that we're taking this initiative, looking at this. We think it's important. And I think the dollars that for the BEAD program and the border to border, we're probably going to see an application in the next month and a half, 2 months, that we're going to need to move pretty quick. So this was just an information piece to let you know. Really would welcome and appreciate a partnership, because I think, this is important to people in the future. It's the next electricity, you might say, from the 1935s. That everybody needs connectivity.
So tonight was just informational. There's no
Yes.
no specific request. Later on, we'll come back.
Yep. And I'd welcome if anybody wants to reach out to me personally, be more than happy to do that.
Commissioner Meyer, then Commissioner or.
Mr. Ward, I just want to know if when you get better broadband service, are you going to start turning your camera on?
Self-presentable. There is an upcoming EDA meeting, February 22. Do I have that right?
3rd.4.
Next
Look-
Thursday.
Next Tuesday?
Thursday.
Next Thursday? Is there time enough to,
We can provide a more detailed update, and I haven't checked my availability, but we'll see if we can't get somebody there if we can. So maybe we can visit on the side and see if that
Lou's
works.
the contact, correct?
What's that?
Lou, the gentleman behind you, Lou, work with Lou and see if you can.
Okay. All right. We'll make it happen. All right. Thank you again. And again, thank you.
So if okay with the board, let's take a 5-minute break and then we'll reconvene. And for the folks who are outside, then we will move on to item 8.3, discuss dog breeding facility.
So you're saying the procedural aspect of
Yeah.
doing this, nothing's been done to even encourage
A
the
change.
procedural aspect of doing it.
And the planning commission did do their work several times and said, no change. And that's part of the procedure. But we keep coming back to this. What, again, for why? Why are we continually coming back to this?
Guess it does warrant an answer.
We've been waiting and we've asked staff for information. We were waiting for a new planning director. We've been asking to postpone it for quite a while. So this is the next step in the process.
But that's a planning director doesn't change our policies and our goals in the county comp plan. That's just an administrative function. I mean, that has not changed. I have been sitting on the planning commission for a number of years. They haven't asked for any changes. And that's a representative group of your county. So again, if we have these rules, regulations and procedures, why are we not following them? If something's changed, I'm not aware of it that would drive even continuing this discussion.
Let's stick with the original plan and then continue that conversation after.
No, I would like an answer. The three of you want to keep this discussion going. We've been inundated by animal folks that have come in and they're outside. She's an outside, the title, I think, is she's CEO of a private nonprofit out of the metro area that has come and got citizens alarmed. But what has changed? I haven't seen a violation in any of our applications. I haven't seen an expansion, any new applications being asked for. Again, what has changed that drives the conversation? And if you can't answer it, then I think.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Meyer.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Okay. So I believe that the purpose of the zoning ordinance is for us to protect the general welfare and health of the county. And so from that perspective, then this is an issue that I think does deserve to be addressed. As far as needing some kind of change that you're talking about as directed from the comp plan, I don't know about that. Perhaps our county attorney's office could better give you some advice on that.
Let's review.
The health and safety of the county. So
Health and welfare.
and welfare. Okay, so do we have a problem related to the dog breeding? Have we got a disease outbreak or a violation outbreak? Or again, what are we trying to protect that isn't already being protected by the rules, regulations that are on the books?
Commissioner Meyer.
Yeah, thanks. The last time this topic came up, both Commissioner Elsing and Commissioner Ward suggested that no change was actually needed. And so I guess I'm willing to talk about why I think we need to change our zoning ordinance or why I think we need to take some action before we move on to talking about what those actions might be. So I'm going to start with two organizations that I've known about since I was a kid. And so that I put some trust into those organizations, and that would be the Humane Society and then the ASPCA, which is the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. So what the Humane Society tells us is that commercial breeders want to maximize profit by producing the highest number of puppies at the lowest possible price. And here's how they do it. And what are listed are about 10 different items in ways where a breeder can maximize their profit, but ends up not being very good for the animal. Tiny cages. Dogs are commonly kept in small stacked wire floored crates or in outdoor pens exposed to heat, cold, and rain. They eat, sleep, and they give birth in confinement. Filthy conditions, poor veterinary care, no grooming, no walking, no playing, no petting, nonstop breeding. Female dogs are bred at every opportunity, even if they're sick, injured, exhausted, or have genetic traits that could be damaging to their puppies. Sudden separation. Puppies aren't given time to gradually separate from their mother and litter mates. Once there is a buyer, the puppies are immediately removed. stressful transportation, no retirement program. No efforts made to find homes for adult dogs who can no longer breed. When their bodies are depleted or sick, then they can no longer produce puppies. They're often abandoned or killed. I read this entire list because I am then going to refer to violations from breeders here in Winona County of items that are specifically listed on this list, some as recently as August of last year. So how could this possibly be true? We have something called an Animal Welfare Act at the federal level, and it is the USDA's job to do inspections and make those enforcements. And this information comes from the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. What they assert is that the USDA has continually failed to enforce what the requirements are. So they have a set of actions that they could take: confiscating animals, imposing fines, revoking licenses. And even though across the country they found over 3,000 violations in 2022, they only filed 5 formal complaints. We had someone speak here at one of our public hearings, an individual who had a lawyer who had successfully sued the USDA for failure to enforce the rules that they have. But again, from the ASPCA, there are industry standards. The animal care standards that the USDA licensed breeders have to meet are shockingly low. They're merely survival standards designed to keep adult dogs healthy enough to produce. For example, a dog can be kept for their entire life in a tiny wire-floored cage, stacked upon other cages, and only 6 inches longer than the animal is in every direction. And female dogs can be bred at nearly every opportunity, churning out litter after litter of puppies with no opportunity for their bodies to rest or recover. The point being that yes, we have animal welfare laws, but no, they are not enforced. And second of all, the practices allow for conditions which are just a part of the way that the business works that simply doesn't care for the health of the animal. In 2016, the county issued 6 licenses to individuals, conditional use permits for individuals who didn't understand that they needed to have those permits. In the packet from that board meeting in 2016 is a report for an individual with an address in Utica. And I just printed this out of that packet. I'm just going to read some of the highlights from the report from a routine inspection that was done in December of 2011. Dogs with tags 33, 198, 127 have an accumulation of tooth loss, swelling and redness of the gums, and a large buildup of brownish material covering the teeth. Animal 169, 162, and a young retriever with no tag were noted as being excessively thin, both visually and to the touch. Animal 198 has a heavy buildup of black crust on the eyes that limit the ability to open its eyes fully. And animal 182 has a buildup of moist brown matter in the ears, and the animal was noted as constantly shaking their head. Animals with tags 33, 127, 44, and 21 have overly excessive matting. 44 has hair loss because of this. 127 has limited vision because of this. And 33 has noticeable pulling of the flesh. Without proper grooming, animals can experience undue pain, pulling or ripping of the hair, infection under the matting, and the animal can't be properly cleaned. This is about the housing and the facilities. In the open breezeway separating the 2 buildings, there's an excessive accumulation of trash mixed with medication bottles, both empty and in use, scattered on the floor. The bottles of medication that are being used from this area are covered in brown, dirty matter. There are rules about the temperature. The temperatures shouldn't be below 50 and they shouldn't be above 85 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is an issue with the inspection in that the whelping room where the puppies are kept is 42 degrees. And the report says that animals that aren't acclimated to lower temperatures can be affected negatively. They could lower the core temperature to the extent that it would cause illness or death. About the primary enclosures, they're narrow to the point that multiple animals within were noted that they would not be able to turn around freely in a normal manner. About the sanitization, the licensee is not properly cleaning, sanitizing the facility as noted by a buildup of excrement in the enclosures, waste buildup in multiple food receptacles, excessive cobwebs and animal hair on the walls and enclosures, and food and water receptacles that are chewed to the extent that they cannot be properly sanitized. Now, this is over a decade old, but there are infractions, there are reports of folks not meeting their rules as recently as last August. So this one is from July of 2022. This person has an address in Utica. Puppies can't be taken from their mothers legally until 8 weeks of age, and they were taken earlier than that. This is from a breeder in St. Charles.
Where are these reports coming from?
These are USDA inspection reports. And we can get you copies of them if you want to see them. So the first issue has to do with the primary enclosures. Again, there are cage sizes. There's this 6-inch rule, and they were written up because their cage sizes were too small for the dogs to have room to move around. This individual didn't provide any veterinary exams. Again, a thing that there are rules about, and they didn't have any vaccinations. This last one comes from August of 2023. The individual wasn't providing veterinary care because there was no testing for parasites. But in addition to this, and I'll just say that this is something that I will think of every day in the summer when it's 90-some degrees. At the start of the inspection at 3:30 p.m., the temperature in the kennel was approximately 89 degrees. And as I said, it's not supposed to be above 85. Upon my encouragement, the licensee set up a fan. The temperature did not drop during the inspection, but it did top off at 92 degrees about halfway through, and it was still at 89 degrees at 7:40 when the inspection ended. So as much as I think Mr. Clark has done a fabulous job on the Planning Commission, and he has been the chair for a number of years and does a great job, he's wrong when he said this isn't about issues in Winona County, because it is. I just want to point out two other things, and that is that we've had 2 opportunities for public hearings, and during those hearings, both the individual who at the time was managing the Winona Humane Society, and at the second one, an individual who works for Paws and Claws, that's the Olmsted County Humane Society, they each told us stories about physical and behavioral issues from dogs that had been rescued from a local commercial breeder. And the gal from Olmsted County talked about how that this female couldn't walk on her hind legs, and it was because of arthritis. And the vet's assessment of the situation is that the dog had spent its entire life in a cage on a cold cement floor, and that was why it couldn't walk. So I'm just saying that these incidents aren't happening far away, they're happening here. When folks started talking to me, and this really happened at door knocking, I was surprised at the number of people who wanted to tell me these stories and wanted me to investigate, and the more that I did, the more that I came to decide, no, I really would like to see us take some action. So I want Winona County to be a place where we care about the land, we care about the people, but we also care about our animals, and we care about it more than we care about profits.
Can I ask you, who signed those USDA or those, are they Board of Animal Health or
No.
the USDA?
These are the USDA reports because the Board of Animal Health will not make.
Okay, so who is this signer? Because I talked to somebody and I got a whole different, I don't have documentation.
I can make sure that you get.
Who signed them? Because I know there's a new person in charge.
So
Doctor.
one of them was prepared by someone named Kevin Wilkins. Brittany Kessler And that last one that had to do with the temperatures, that was again, Evan Wilson. And those are USDA APHIS inspections.
Because I talked to a Veronica Barch, but she is the chief of the Board of Animal Health.
That's the state of
And-
Minnesota.
And she had no reports.
Those reports
I'm not
can't be
sure.
made public anyway.
So I'm not sure why the discrepancy.
So perhaps the Board of Health and the USDA both do inspections.
Procedural question, should we have the staff present what they have gathered for us, or do we want to move right into a discussion?
I would like to see a presentation.
Okay, could the planning department staff and or the county attorney's office summarize the information for the public that was in the agenda? Or is that more of a county attorney office?
But we were asked to do some legal evaluation analysis
Right.
and work together with planning. So I don't know if planning wants to go first and then.
Would it work just to summarize the four options that
Sure,
you
I
had?
mean, and Mr. Kranz here has worked on the memo.
Okay, with the rest of the board?
So to the board agenda. So if Steve, go ahead.
Sure. So basically what I understood the task to be is that there were a range of options being considered, that planning had put forth sort of a low to high regulation and wanted to know the legal implications of each, as well as some specific questions they had about the statutes. So what has been discussed here a little bit that is clear is that there is a framework for inspections, and it's falls under the State Board of Animal Health and the USDA. And the county has authority to enact regulations that are more strict than what those entities have. And again, as was discussed, the county has used conditional use permits as a tool to regulate. And those permit terms have changed over the years as it looks like the county has gained more information on the issue and what they felt were needed. And one thing that I'll say this before I go into the specific reactions to the four options that were presented. So from answering this as a legal question, I thought it was important to sort of define what it is where the regulations we're trying to resolve. And what I found was that there's very little information available to know whether there's a problem or not. And the question becomes whether the existing state and federal laws and regulations are, if that's perceived to be the problem, that they are insufficient, or the perceived problem is that the quality of inspection oversight is insufficient, or the perceived problem is that the lack of transparency from the entities that do have oversight of this issue. I will say that it was very difficult to get information on this issue from the Board of Animal Health or the USDA. So point specific, as I mentioned before, the county has the authority to regulate commercial breeder kennels. It doesn't have to regulate them, but it has that ability. There is a fairly comprehensive state and federal regulatory framework that is in place already. Option one that the planning commission or the planning department asked us to evaluate was to basically utilize the existing laws and tools that are available. And this would mean just continuing to use conditional use permits and the recommendation would be to use the knowledge the county has gained over the past since 2016, since this issue first came up, to inform the conditions on conditional use permits and what what conditions the county feels are necessary outside the context of looking at a specific kennel operation. And there would be a benefit to having that discussion outside the scope and sort of deciding on what types of conditions, a menu of conditions that the county thinks are good or match what the county thinks animals should have for welfare in Winona County. The second option, and I should say the advantage of that, of course, is that it's the easiest to implement, the least effective, the least cost, and the least additional work for staff. The disadvantage of is that it doesn't really provide the county with any additional information to help it manage animal welfare, the welfare of dogs in these kennels. The second option proposed was a new administrative policy, and this basically was a proposal to have the planning department take on a more information sharing role to educate kennels, commercial dog breeders about practices, and to basically require as a condition that all kennels maintain compliance with all laws and regulations, state and federal, which is partially what is already being included in the more recently issued conditions. And the advantage of this overall is that it takes a more positive approach in terms of education, maybe recognizing good practices, and the ability of the county to utilize, again, what it's learned over the years to do things outside sort of the board context of having the planning department sort of taking in a role in doing these things within internal policy changes. And then the third option was to amend the Winona County zoning ordinance. The only comments I had regarding this was that care should be given to define what kennel is being regulated, what the definition of a kennel is, or the scope of what is being regulated. So if different kennels were going to be regulated in different ways, you want to be very careful how you define what each of those kennels are, so that the scope isn't too broad or too narrow, and avoid unintended consequences of an unfair condition being imposed on somebody because they mistakenly fall within the definition of a kennel. And then the final option was the more regulation, and I basically interpreted what they said as sort of in addition to land regulation through the zoning ordinance, there could be sort of a business licensing ordinance that would have standards for people operating these businesses. Those would not run with the land like a zoning ordinance does, and they could come within the
$20 in the kitty.
Yeah. No, it was on the sign. It may be possible that way to encompass kennels that are already operating, so requiring a business license and establishing standards for that, and being able to regulate using that, and then developing that expertise of animal welfare outside sort of the planning land use issue, which might be more efficient and more effective. The other part of that was just a suggestion that I came across in seeing some of the Board of Animal Health requirements. The Board of Animal Health requires kennels to make their USDA filings available to the Board of Animal Health. And it seems to me that the county could do the same thing and require the kennels they're regulating to submit the Board of Animal Health filings and inspection reports to the county, and the USDA inspection reports. And the advantage of that
would be that it would give the county some information to work with without a lot of additional staff resources. And then the absence of those reports would alert the county to that maybe they need to look into whether those inspections are happening or not. Because it's hard to, in the current environment, to know what is actually happening due to the scarcity of information.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward.
There's a lot going on at all levels. But I did look up Ann Olson, I looked up your animal folks, and your mission statement is, we aim to protect animals and prevent cruelty through constructive and sustainable reform. So I guess I'm unfortunate if BAN is the only constructive and sustainable reform that your private nonprofit that you're head of, that you draw a healthy salary out, is I think misleading to the public. I'm very disappointed in that. Commissioner Meyer, unfortunately, you did not take advantage of the tour that I was trying to coordinate. I opened it up to all people. The current kennels that I've observed do not have wire cages. They have in-floor heat. They have ventilation. They have fresh water accessible all times. They have food. They have outdoor running areas. They have indoor spaces that are controlled, and they have a lot of human touch. So this is a program, and there's programs that everybody's working on. This is one in particular that the Amish community shared with me. It's called Canine Management Manual. And I was impressed with the amount of stuff they're trying to do. And they can become certified. And I may be confused, but I think this is coming in part out of the Purdue University. But they have protocols. And the one I visited, they're very close to getting the certificate. But they have table of contents for animal care. They've got standard operating, adult protocol, canine vaccine protocol, parasite treatment and prevention protocol, puppy care protocol, tail docking and declaw removal protocol, nutritional protocol, cleaning and disinfecting protocol, pest control, retirement, rehoming and return canine plan protocol, quarantine for new and returned dogs, emergency event plan, medical procedure and treatment of and euthanization protocols, variance protocols, and biosecurity plans. But what caught my attention was, and everybody wants to call them puppies, and in their puppy protocol requirements, puppies must be monitored at minimum twice a day. Puppies should be handled twice a day from birth or from day 3 of birth. Each puppy should receive daily gentle stroking, top of head to tip of tail for 30 seconds to 1 minute per puppy. Puppies 3 weeks or older need to be socialized to objects and events likely to be encountered upon being placed in a home. This should include different objects, sounds, new environments, and surfaces. This is just one of the protocols that they are trying to ensure that the public is getting a quality product. Now, that first report you read, yes, there are horror stories, and your report there with the national organizations. Winona County can't control the world, and we can control Winona County. And I think our current conditional use permits, and if we want to put a standard in here about them obtaining this, there's another Minnesota one. It's called, they obtain badges, and it's very similar, but I don't have a copy of that. But this is an enormous, they want to provide a quality product to the public. And there's the 5 freedoms, free for animal rights or animal welfare. Freedom for human hunger and thirst. They do that. Freedom from discomfort by providing shelter. In-floor radiant heat. It was warmer than my house was this winter. Freedom from pain, injury, and disease. They have constant veterinary. Lewiston Vet is a constant visitor to theirs, and a veterinarian takes an oath of office. So if there's a problem and the veterinarian's there and they're not doing their job, they're not following their oath, because being admitted to the profession of veterinary medicine, I solemnly swear to use my scientific knowledge and skills for the benefit of society through the protection of animal health and welfare, the prevention and relief of animal suffering, the conservation of animal resources, the promotion of public health, and the advancement of medical knowledge. So right there, if you have veterinarians coming to these facilities, which they do on an ongoing basis, if there's a problem, the veterinary's not reporting it, then maybe it's the veterinary that we need to reprimand. And then most recently, there is some legislation that's happening it was introduced last year. And I know Ms. Olson will be and I haven't figured out if you support this or you don't support it, because I was reading conflicting documents, but it's Senate File 1136 and House File 1168. It's the creation of a companion animal board, which would prioritize pet issues. We've heard over and over again that they don't want to be thrown in with the livestock industry. So I think this bill, they're trying to create a separate entity for pets and companion animals. I'm not sure, where it's going to go, but it is in. And again, I don't know if they're supporting it or not supporting it. It develops another layer, a different layer of regulation and oversight. But by name, it seems like it would be something that we would want to look into and maybe support or do some more research on. So there's many things going on. And I was amazed, and this doesn't surprise me totally, but more Minnesota families have a dog or cat than have a kid. And we got lots of kids in Minnesota, and there's lots of kids that are mishandled. We have a foster care system. So do we condemn all parents? If your kid goes into the foster care system, do we condemn all parents? Because all parents are bad because we got a foster care system? I mean, that's kind of the relationship I think you're trying to make. We can control breeders in our county, but we can't control the world. And yes, there's problems in the world. There's problems in the United States. But I think our breeders are doing, and by using the canine partners, and if the state of Minnesota creates this companion animal board, I think there's a lot of things good going for these breeders and the industry.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner Elson?
I just have a few comments. Me and growing up on a farm, growing up with animals, I realize I've seen a lot of things in my 25 years in the ag industry. And I've seen some things that sicken me. I've seen some things that I'm ultimately impressed how, in actuality, some of the biggest locations we work with have some of the best animal care. Size to me is not relevant. It comes to, I believe, the intent of the person. And the intent of the person is really going to dictate, regardless of how many animals, because you can neglect one, you can neglect a million. It just depends on what the intent of that person is. I can't deny the fact that there's obviously been issues in the past. I think we could walk into anybody's house, we could walk into anybody's anywhere and 10 things wrong, that a baby could stick something in or a child could trip over, or something that could happen. So none of us are perfect. But I had never actually been to one of these facilities, so I actually went in with an open mind. And having been in the agriculture sector for many years and referring back to what I just said, I honestly didn't know what to expect. I was actually overwhelmed at what I saw in a positive manner. I expected to see what Commissioner Meyer described. That is 180 degrees from what I saw. The floors there were cleaner than our carpet. I'm not kidding you. Every animal that I went into in every cage was friendly. They came up to me and wanted a pet. Not a single one shied away. They had blankets over the edges of the kennels because they like to give the new puppies a little privacy. I did not see anything that was described in what was put. No, I can't attest to everything. I can only attest to what I saw. I have to firmly believe that I don't know of one farmer, one person in animal agriculture that gets everything right, even the best of the best. But my bigger fear with this whole scenario is let me back this up. What I see from what was initially reported in 2016, or what I've heard to what I see today, is that I see a group of people trying with limited resources. They can't get on the internet. Well, that's by choice. Right? But they're not on the internet. They have what's presented in front of them to say, this is what we need to do. So if we stop something like this, if we ban anything, does it really solve the problem? Mr. Yoder himself said, no, it's just going to happen over here. And he himself said it. It's not going to be him, but somebody else is going to pick up the slack. And then you're going to go fight this battle somewhere else. And my bigger fear that I see is going back to the scenario that Commissioner Meyer brought up. Because every time we regulated, when we regulate drugs, did it get rid of the drug problem? No, it just put it underground. And oftentimes made the situation much worse. So what I see is a group of people trying. They're trying to figure this out because they don't want to lose their livelihood. They pay, I imagine, collectively from $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in taxes, and had some sort of an expectation that says, hey, if you want to pick on our livelihood, why not help us out? Instead of just condemning us and coming in and checking the boxes and everything we did wrong. I don't hear anything about how are we going to help them? Because they don't have all the resources that we have, but they're trying. Clearly, they're trying. I saw it myself. And I'm a little disappointed that the opportunity was here, especially for the commissioners that I think might potentially be against helping these people to figure out how they can do a better job. Because banning it isn't going to solve it. It's going to move it. That's all it's going to do. It's going to move the problem from this location to a new location. That's it. It ain't going to help anything. And within 6 weeks, there's going to be a whole new set of dogs doing the exact same thing. And now we got to go out and figure out where they're at, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and it starts the process completely over. So my solution to this thing is, why aren't we helping? Why are we just saying, no, you shouldn't do this. No, you shouldn't do that. Winona County. I challenge the board to take a different approach to this and say, let's look at this as another opportunity. I believe these people have good intentions. I had a group of 7 kids follow me everywhere I went, petting puppies and doing the things they were doing and excited to see me. And one of the things that I challenged Mr. Yoder when I was there, and again, this is the only facility that I saw, and I'd never been in one. I know where they're at, but I've never had a need to stop. Was I said, Mr. Yoder, I understand the idiosyncrasies with your culture. I remember putting all the bulk tanks in Winona County when they changed the rule that you could no longer use cans. That was a big thing for the Amish community to switch from canned milk to having to put bulk tanks in. And I'm the guy that went around and put 10 of them in for sure, just in the Saratoga, Fremont area. And I could tell you a good story about getting shown up by an Amish woman trying to get one of your generators going, that she knew how to do that way better than I could. But at the end of the day, I saw the struggle, but I also saw them adapt. They were willing to adapt because they understood our way of doing this. Although did you think a single one of them said, yeah, getting rid of cans is a bad idea or a good idea? No, but they said, hey, we understand. We're going to adapt. But that takes time. They didn't look it up on the internet. Nobody called them. They had to find out the hard way that these things had to happen. So at the end of the day, what did we do? We created a service and we helped them adapt to keep the livelihood of their farms going. And so I have the same concern here. I don't believe banning this is going to do one thing other than move the problem. And I guess if you're an out of sight, out of mind sort of person, animal activist, whatever label you want to give yourself, if that's where you get your feel good because it ain't happening in your backyard, then I guess so be it. But to me, it doesn't change anything. It just relocates the issue if there's an issue at hand. So I want to challenge the board. I really wished you guys would have saw this. I was genuinely impressed and I went in with an open mind. It was very clean, and I purposely delayed the visit just to see if, hey, are they waiting for me to show up, right? Not to be sneaky, but just to check it out. And so I really wished you could have saw it. I don't like the idea of regulation. I believe that people have the best intentions, and I'm going to challenge the board to find a way to help, rather than just condemn, check the boxes, and you did this and you did that, because I don't know anybody in here that's perfect, besides the good Lord himself. So at the end of the day, that's my thing. I think we should try to help.
Thank you. Any other discussions? Commissioner Olson?
I would say that Minnesota statutes, including Minnesota statutes 394.21, 394.301, 375.51, allow Winona County through its zoning ordinance to protect the public's interest in public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And animal welfare is not excluded from these laws and should be valued and embraced as part of our public interest. Nothing that I would propose can affect existing operations. So we would like to work with them to enhance the treatment of the animals. I would like to make a motion that would have Winona County work toward the following. Based on the findings, that Winona County Board hereby prohibits any further permits in Winona County for kennels as defined in section 4.2 of the Winona County zoning ordinance, kennel, any structure or premises on which 4 or more dogs over 4 months of age are kept for sale, breeding, profit, etc., for 6 or more months. For these purposes, the definition of kennel excludes any not-for-profit organization or government entity, such as animal control operations, which are devoted to the rescue, care, and adoptions of stray, abandoned, unwanted, or surrendered animals, and does not breed animals. Kennel is also referred to as dog kennel below, be it the dog kennels will be considered prohibited use in all zoning districts and include as 1B under section 10.11 of the Winona County zoning ordinance. The dog kennel number 14 will be deleted from section 10.4.6, the conditional use, and dog kennels number 8 will be deleted from section 10.5.5, the use of the Winona County zoning ordinance. So that would be my motion.
Why wasn't the rest of us provide, I mean, that's overcoming, and I have to ask, this animal care, I'll ask it, animal care is a private nonprofit, but they spend $148,000 on professional fees and payments to independent contractors. So Commissioner Olson, are you an independent contractor for animal care?
No.
Are you, Commissioner Meyer? No, Commissioner No, Commissioner Olson?
What's your point?
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, that's a pretty detailed, I question the author of that much information, and that kind of information can come to us without any in the packet or information.
If I may, I just asked,
In the zoning ordinance.
Commissioner, Commissioner Meyer.
it's detailed, Commissioner Olson, and I mean, you can catch it, you can hear it, but I mean, until it's studied and understood and what we're trying to actually vote on, I would have to have time to review everything you just said. It's pretty detailed. That's a very detailed motion to just say yay or nay to. So I would have to say by default to say nay, because I literally would take time. It isn't like you had one point, you had multiple points there.
Hasn't even been seconded, so I don't know why we're talking about it.
Do I still have the floor? I'm not sure if I did. Yeah, thanks. So at the, but again, I go back and say, look, maybe everything you said is valid. I don't know. I don't understand what you just said. But I do have an intention as to what I do have an idea as to the intent of the motion that you're doing. The reality of it is I ask myself, how does that solve the problem of dogs? It doesn't. It just stops today what we're doing. And if we're saying that if we can help somebody do a better job, one of the things that I promoted to Mr. Yoder was, unfortunately, your culture doesn't like a lot of outside people coming in. And I said, for you to be in this business and where the public perception is today, you might have to rethink that, go to the elders, do what you need to do and say, look, we're in a position, we're kind of under a microscope, even if it's just regional or, temporary, whatever that is. And I said, you really, unfortunately, are going to have to prove to the public that what you're doing is the best of intentions, and you might have to expose yourself a little bit to change that public perception. And I go back and I say, nothing in that motion that I believe is the intent of the motion is to help with that. It is just simply to stop. It's just simply to stop it and say, keep doing what you're doing, but we're not going to allow any more. The question I have is what happens if we have somebody that wants to create a beautiful facility that falls into everybody's guidelines and everything that they want to happen? Because the reality of it is it's not going to curb the demand. It's, again, just going to shift the demand somewhere else. It doesn't, if you claim there's an issue, it doesn't stop the issue. There's no goal here other than to just simply say, not in my backyard. It doesn't actually help.
Commissioner Meyer, Commissioner Ward.
I had some questions for the county attorney. So Um, Looking at your proposals now, so I'm looking at page 227 of our packet, right? And it's item number 3, which is county authority to regulate commercial breeder kennels. So I think what Commissioner Olson read is the basis in statute for us to actually move forward with an actual ban of new kennels. In your verbiage, you tell us that this is limited by the rule that the county cannot enact an ordinance that authorizes conduct that the state expressly forbids, or that forbids conduct that a state expressly authorizes. Now, is it true that we do not have a statutory basis for doing something like what Commissioner Olson proposes?
No, Commissioner. Well, first of all, just to clarify, those were not our proposals. We were analyzing the options presented us by Planning and Environmental Services.
Okay.
Second, all that, the issue that is described there is something called preemption, and it has to do with who has the authority to regulate things. The county has to have the authority allocated to it to regulate something in order to regulate it. And that's usually statutory, or it could fall within the general definition of the powers within a county for health and welfare. And for something like this, what a court would be looking at is, has the state filled up the field of regulation to such a degree that the local municipality or county is not supposed to regulate it? And in this issue, what a court would look at is, are the standards sort of minimum standards, or are they clearly defined standards that the state wants followed, as opposed to a minimum standard? If it's a minimum standard, the county could have more stringent standards. And so if there was express language, though, that said the county cannot regulate this area, or the county cannot have a ban on a certain area of law, of commerce, then that would be sort of an express thing that the county couldn't do. The commercial dog breeder kennel actually defers to the county, and in that it says that part of the approval process for getting a permit from the state to have a commercial dog breeding kennel is that you're following all local regulations relating to dog breeding, which means that if the state assumes that the county could be regulating that, and that they would honor that regulation.
Okay, so we do have the authority. We could do a ban. All right, so in addition to that, I'm interested in talking about option 4. It looks to me like actually in that packet back in 2015 or 2016, one of the people who wrote in opposition of the approval of the 6 conditional use permits specifically talked about Sherburne County. And I went out and looked at Sherburne County, and it appears to me that they do have a county private and commercial kennel licensing ordinance. And then they do have a different set of requirements. They ask their kennels to renew that license every year. Their sheriff's department or their public health department then does annual inspections. They have some slightly higher requirements than what are just set forth by the Board of Animal Health, in their rules. So now so are you familiar with, or have you looked at that statute?
I did look generally at what other ordinances are around in the state, and there are examples of municipalities or in particular having requirements that exceed of animal welfare requirements that exceed what's required by the state. I didn't analyze Sherburne County in particular, but I was curious to know if other entities were doing this.
And thinking about that and looking at what the staff had to say about it, because both the staff and the sheriff's department said that they would need, that it was like the most expensive option. On the other hand, I can see that Sherburne County charges a fee. And then they also charge for the inspections. And then if it takes over a certain amount of staff time, they charge per hour and for those sort of things. So I would encourage that it would be a thing that we could help pay for it through the people who are in the business. And I think that if we did both, created an ordinance to not allow any new kennels and then also help the existing folks who are in the business and who are responsible for the sort of cruel situations that end up and rules that are not followed and the violations, that it would give us the opportunity to then do that education and to help them raise those who are not at a higher standard to raise their standards. So has Commissioner Olson's motion failed for lack of a second?
I will second the motion just because we've had a lot of discussion.
Commissioner Olson's motion?
Yes.
Because I would like to see us not only move forward with a potential ban of new kennels, but I would also like to see us work with the existing kennels to bring them up to a more humane standard.
I got just a question to that.
So that's not a friendly amendment to the existing motion.
Yeah, if Commissioner Olson's motion had failed for lack of a second, this is the motion that I would make in its place.
Commissioner Ward, Commissioner Olson.
So did I understand in your verbiage that was not provided to all of us, that you're still allowing small, quote, hobby breeders?
Based on the definition that
So you could have 4 dogs?
Based on the definition that's in the current zoning.
Okay, I'm asking the question. You had a number 4, I thought I read.
4 or more.
Okay, all right, so what are we doing for the regulations of the hobby? I'll just refer to them as hobby breeders. Is there any disease prevention and treatment? Is there any responsible care? Is there any proper housing? Is there any nutritional management and humane handling? And any of these things, size of, if you're gonna use crates or pens, or have outdoor, we've been big on outdoor exercise areas. So if you're gonna allow and again, are we trying to punish the owners or are we trying to punish the animals? Or are we trying to protect the animals and punish the owners? I mean, going to a small, my definition would be a hobby breeder, we have, in my opinion, lost total control of asking them to provide records. We don't know where these dogs would be going, when they would be sold, if there would be any health inspections or health papers with them. We've lost total control.
Pushes it underground.
Yeah, and it becomes every industry has an underground facet. And so you're just gonna have people in their back barns raising these dogs with no heat or no electricity or no, veterinary care and such, but they're small, so small is better. Small is always better. Is that the assumption?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, that there's no.
I think that would be a great motion for you to propose after mine's voted on.
But no, because yours is a ban, and I don't use the word ban. So, I mean, are you proposing anything for animal? Okay, big thing is animal welfare. In your proposal, where is the animal welfare element?
Can't figure out.
Is it in there? I didn't hear that mentioned with the restrictions that you were putting on the industry.
Let's go.
Is there, Commissioner Olson?
Let's go with Commissioner Olson.
No, I want Commissioner Olson to answer that. Where's the animal welfare? Do you have to bring them in the house at night and have them sleep in your bed for 6 hours? Or where is it taking care of the animal? I mean, 4 dogs can have quite a few puppies, litters. By breed, they vary. So again, I mean, size, Commissioner Olson, I'm asking,
Commissioner Ward, I'm not going to entertain your.
well, how would you take care of the smaller breeders? Is that not a concern of yours?
If you're concerned with that, I would suggest you make your own motion.
No, but you're the one that wants to control any size.
No against my motion.
I know.
It's simple. Thank you.
I think we're looking for solutions here.
Commissioner
And-
Ward,
and-
let's move on. I apologize. Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, again, I don't, to me, if it's about the animal and we're truly concerned and we see that there's an issue, then I could see if the board agrees that, and I'm sure this will be a 3-2 vote, that Okay, let's have some more oversight, and reality of it is, if you lose that battle, the people that are involved with this can decide, hey, we don't want to do this anymore. Again, it doesn't solve the problem. It just pushes it. It isn't like the people in the cities and everywhere that's doing this are gonna be like, oh, sorry, Winona County won. We don't want a dog anymore. It doesn't solve anything. I say the old saying, if you guys truly think this is an enemy, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Banning it doesn't solve anything. If the demand continues to rise, it pushes it in a new direction where you have zero oversight. Like I said, I've been to very small farms that neglect animals, and it's a cruel thing, which alludes to Commissioner Ward's comment. Is it about a mass? Is it about one? Does one person count? Does 100 people count? Does one dog count? Do 100 people count? They all count. So at the end of the day, I don't know how the banning aspect solves anything. It just pushes it out of sight, out of mind. To me, I say, if you truly find this to be a concern, and again, if you regulate your way into it far enough, they could choose to just stop doing it. It now takes that, and as Mr. Yoder said, it'll just go to the next location. The demand doesn't quit just because we want to assess regulation. That's the gist of it. When it goes away, then it'll go away. When the demand quits, then the problem will go away. So why not work with people that want to invest into this and gradually help them do a better job? That is my concept. So I don't see how a ban does it. If you want a little more regulation and oversight and taxpayers want to pay for it and they believe it's necessary, then hey, I guess that's the route we go down. But I don't see where the ban is going to solve anything. It's just going to push the problem to a different location.
Mr. Overhog.
I would just like to interject and refer everybody to Chapter 5 of the Winona County zoning ordinance, which lays out the process for amending the zoning ordinance. You can check it out, it's detailed, but essentially amending the zoning ordinance, which a ban would be included under option 3 that we provided to the county attorney's office and to the board, and would require 2 public hearings, which need to be noticed and would need to go through the planning commission and then to the county board. So just so everybody knows, you can't make that motion tonight, but we can set up the process for making those decisions. So I just wanted to redirect the conversation so that we weren't talking about things that are kind of spinning in circles and talking about things that can't be actually done legally tonight.
My motion was to have Winona County work toward the following. That's
Okay.
how I preempted it, so.
Fair. Yep. I don't know that everybody picked that up, but thank you.
How about if we vote on the existing motion and then we'll go from there?
I will not vote on the motion because it should have been provided to us ahead of time. There is a lot in there that just by Mr. Olson, Commissioner Olson reading it, I can't grasp what the intent is. And there was references to many documents, points. And so, no, I will abstain from voting because
I have no idea
again,
what I'm
it
voting
should have
on.
been presented ahead of time. I mean, we don't do that to each other to throw. And I don't know if county administration knew that this was coming. I have a feeling you did not. If you had known it was coming, I know you would have forwarded to all of us ahead of time so we could have had a chance to operate. That's not the way I do business. That's not the way I told to make major decisions that affect the taxpayers of Winona County. I will not vote.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
I'm going
Any-
to abstain.
I'm also going to abstain because I do not understand the motion fully.
So is my correct understanding that there's 3 ayes and 2 abstentions? The motion passes on a vote of 3-0. Commissioner Meyer.
We put great trust in the American public.
A second motion, and that motion would be that I would like the board to consider option 4. I understand that we are very short-staffed, and so I'm thinking sometime later this year. And after folks have had some time to take a look at it, but that we potentially move forward with option 4, having a new license ordinance. And I think in order to do that, we'll potentially take what maybe Sherburne County or other counties have done and need to have some kind of a process for working towards a set of requirements that would help the breeders that we have, which, as I said earlier, have had issues with compliance of existing law, that we potentially work towards getting them to fully understand what that compliance is.
I'll second that.
The motion is to begin the process of moving towards what was option 4 in the
Option
packet.
4, yeah.
Commissioner Ward?
I've been always under the understanding with the years of working with planning and zoning and going to numerous trainings and such, that a conditional use permit, once granted under a certain set of rules and regulations, and that infrastructure was built to meet those standards and everything, that it is, for better terms or whatever, that it is grandfathered in. You're proposing disallowing those. Well, but you're not going to allow any new ones. So the people who are working under a current conditional use permit, where are they at? You're going to require them to get a business license now? That's a significant change in our policy, in our public trust. A person, when they get a conditional use permit, so I'll relate it to all these houses were being allowed to build on less than 40 acres. Tons of conditional use permits, okay? We decide at some point in time, we don't like that anymore, which we're doing here tonight. We don't like that anymore. We want to go back to the strict 40 acres per house, per residential. So do we make them take those houses down? Because they were allowed under a conditional use permit with conditions. To me, it's this, you're kind of going down the same path. You're asking somebody who put good faith in Winona County, applied for the conditional use permit, is meeting the conditions, paid the fee, it's recorded, and conditional use permits go with the land. They don't go with the owner. So where are we going with this? Are we taking, are we throwing, public trust is very important. If we're saying, at the whim of the board, 5 commissioners, we can change the game rules, and we could technically ask you to remove your house if it's not on the 40 acres. Where are we going?
Ms. Pulte?
I would also ask that before a vote is taken on this, that thought be given to, is the board going to allocate the resources that's needed to do what you're asking?
Yeah.
So I'm just,
Yep,
give that
there's-
serious consideration.
Yep, there's dollars that need to, we've already spent a lot of dollars on this whole project.
I respect that, but
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that there will be a cost to go down this path.
But I would like the county attorney and any other actual conditional use permit holder, if they need legal counsel to obtain it. Because if we go down this path of rejecting, and again, my term grandfathered conditional use permits, we're affecting a lot of people, potentially a lot of people. And would there be trust in Winona County commissioners? It'd be tough. It'd be a tough sell. So if you're going to ask them now to get a business license, but there's no need for a business license if you're not going to allow any new ones.
Commissioner Meyer?
Yeah. So
Unless you want these four dog ones to get the commercial, and which maybe that they should.
Okay. So a little bit ago, Commissioner Elsing said that we needed to work with the existing kennels. Because we do have, I think that's great that we have a kennel that's taken on some additional requirements. I think it's great that you toured them and that you were satisfied with what you saw. The reason that I didn't go had more to do with, I had already spoken to Commissioner Olson, and therefore I felt it was inappropriate to go meet with you at that kennel. But I would love it if staff does organize tours. And I think we'll have more than enough time to do that as this process unfolds. So I think that'd be great. But as Commissioner Elsey said, we needed to work with the existing kennels. As I've documented, we have kennels in this county that are not even following the minimum USDA standards and have violations that indicate maltreatment of the animals that are in their care. And so for that reason, I think it's great if we go ahead and consider option 4, which is our opportunity to help them improve and to protect the conditions of the dogs.
To clarify, you're asking to begin a process. And the question of existing kennels being grandfathered would be answered. There's usually any kind of change, everything is grandfathered in. That's my understanding.
Right, it doesn't revoke the conditional use permit.
Right.
It's a business license and it has a set of requirements. And one of the main things is that it does allow us to do inspections.
So it begins the process.
So it'd be an additional, they'd have to get a conditional use permit.
They already
Plus-
have their conditional use permits, existing council.
No, the existing ones do.
Yes.
Okay, so you're saying they
This is a business license.
they would, okay, if they already have their conditional use permit with conditions and everything, you're saying this would be on top, another layer of regulatory control over 10 breeders.
In order to prevent the
and
sort of
and multiple
violation.
dollars of total taxpayer commitment
In order
to
to
do this.
prevent the sort of violations that I talked about.
Mr. Nelson,
What is the intent of the business license? Is it just to open up a door to be able to say, hey, you had another set of violations, you're not perfect, nobody is, good, now we got grounds to shut you down? What's the intent? What does it gain? What does it can do?
The documentation that was given, and so now I'm looking at.
I've read it, but I mean, I guess maybe I'm,
229. So from a regulatory standpoint, option 4 is the potential advantage that it separates regulation of land use from regulation of animal welfare.
right, which allows the ability to close it if we so want to, for any discretionary reason. Meaning that it just sets us up to be able to say, well, the conditional land permit is still permitted to the land, but unfortunately you don't meet the business requirements because you made a mistake. Boom, you're shut down. And once they shut down, there's a pretty good chance they're never going to come. And I see that as a means to just ultimately gain what I see the whole objective of this is.
Mr. Chair?
I still don't believe that, that's in the best interest because I don't believe anybody's perfect. So I just really can't support this ban. I definitely could see, hey, if the public perception is there's something bad going on, that, more oversight, hey, this is what I challenged Mr. Yoder for. You might have to open up your doors and let a few more people come in and begin to understand what's happening here and that it is not exactly what at all like you described. And help with that public perception. I see this as a means to backdoor regulate it. I see it as a means to ban it, and it opens up the potential. So, I mean, I don't know. I disagree.
Mr. Meyer, Commissioner Ward.
So I think it does provide that opportunity to do the additional oversight that is apparently needed for some of the breeders. I also think, I'm going to go back to the very first violation that I talked about, where the person that did the inspection talked about 4 or 5 different dogs who were missing teeth and had red and inflamed gums, and they had brown goo around their teeth, and ones that had eyes that were matted so shut they couldn't open them. And I would say that's not a mistake. That's a maltreatment of an animal that any one of us, if we went in and saw it, wouldn't say is a mistake. We would say that it's maltreatment of an animal.
Commissioner Ward.
Planning staff, I believe in almost all conditional use permits, there's a clause that says annual inspections you're acknowledging that planning staff can do inspections? I don't know if it's a written, but it's one of those things that you agree to, what you agreed to in a verbal public hearing.
Yeah, that's been the practice for many years now.
Everything you can go in and inspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, adding this license just to get inspections, we don't need it. We already have the ability to go do inspections on whatever.
Right, that option 4, just so everyone's clear, that's kind of the nuclear option too. That's going to be enforcement. And it's going to be a burden on the sheriff's department because 4 dogs, no more. I think anybody caught with 4 or more dogs is going to be subject to violations. That's the way that ordinance reads that I've seen, the example on it. We looked at the Winona County biting dog or dog at large, looked at the city of St. Charles. They regulate on numbers. The kennel people will be brought in, not the breeders, but they will be subject to this too, for ones that are,
For boarding.
yeah, for housing dogs.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind, I guess. So there's a lot of problems if it's not thought out. Once you're regulating that too, there's various different sets of state statute that are play. And, again, we don't have the personnel or staff, so you're gonna have to put a price tag on this too.
Are you familiar with that, the Senate files that I referenced, for the companion animal board bill?
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I did not have time to reference those. I would like to see where they're going as far as animal protection, creating a whole new board. Maybe we're overreacting. Maybe this will be a better option. I don't know. People are offended that the companion pets are considered livestock, and this is taking it out of the livestock. The way I understand it, in a brief thing, is taking it out of the livestock statutes and everything and putting it in a companion animal with more regulation and more oversight, and that would be at the state's expense. I hope, or they may mandate it down to us, as they always like to do. But again, we don't know where this is going, and nobody seems to be too familiar with this, where it's going. I would prefer, before we jump into any of these other areas, to know what's going to happen here.
We've had it.
Commissioner Elston, Commissioner Meyer.
Alluding to your comment about the mistake, I realize that neglect isn't necessarily a mistake. What I'm alluding to is that there's an obvious improvement happening, and why not capitalize on that improvement rather than just saying, okay, you're done, no more. I'm not gonna allow you. And oh, by the way, we're gonna create a backdoor opportunity to actually shut you down if we really want to. I think it's got ill intentions. I still don't see how we're helping dogs other than the few dogs that exist. We're just pushing the policy. We're just pushing it somewhere else. The van's not gonna leave.
All good. Mr. Kranz, you wanted to interject now or after?
I just wanted to correct as far as the applicability of the Winona County ordinance. In order to fall within that, there is 4 dogs, that's correct, but it has to be a business that is breeding, selling, or involved in other related profit-making activity with the dogs.
Regulate that.
And just generally, it regulates just building and land. The state laws regulate building, land, vehicles, owners, confinement areas is a little more expansive than what Winona County's current ordinance applies to. And the state commercial breeder statute requires 10 dogs minimum. So I just wanted to clarify those distinctions.
Thank you. Commissioner Meyer.
Our procedures will allow me to ask a specific question of someone in the audience. That's up to the board.
Has it been addressed before?
I think it's in our policies.
Specific question.
Yes. Ms. Olson, I have a specific question for you about the companion animal bill. Did your organization help write and support that? Could you please come to the microphone?
Please, if you could, limit your comments to your response to just that question.
Yeah.
Yes.
And where is the bill at the legislature?
Legislature just started on Monday, so I'll be lobbying it. It's been referred to the Agriculture Committee.
This is not the first year that it went to the legislature?
No, we're entering our 5th year.
5th year and yet not been adopted.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
This article said 2023 session that it was introduced, so
Probably reintroduced.
well, it just says introduced. It doesn't say read, it says introduced.
Any other discussion? As the board chair, I need to talk last and just facilitate. I want to say a few things, is that I'm also concerned about the staff costs involved with this, and we're not, I'm going to vote in favor of the second motion, but this is just to begin the process. I'm also concerned about the staff costs and just, creating another false sense of security. We need to make sure that that this is something that we can be paid for and not ask existing staff to do. I am very interested in Commissioner Elsing's points. One of his sayings that I respect is educate before regulate. So whatever possible, try to work with the dog kennels to work with them versus regulate. But I'm going to vote in favor. I do think that this is something worth discussing. I also want to point out that I have asked for about over a year to go and visit the facilities. Commissioner Ward, you asked me last Wednesday, and I appreciated that. And I feel bad because my daughter, who only comes into town a few times a year, was coming to town from North Dakota. So I apologize, and thank you to Mr. Yoder for the invitation. But I would love to go out with you and or anyone else to visit, because I've been wanting to visit, and I've said that at least 2 other county board meetings. So I feel bad that it couldn't happen in the 6 days. I think we discussed it after the last law enforcement center task force meeting. So I apologize that couldn't happen, but I would still like to do that at some point. Any other discussion? So the motion on the table is to begin the process of looking at option 4. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Hey,
So the motion carries 3-2. That takes us down to 8.4, discuss / select strategic planning facilitator. Is that you, Ms. Holsey, on that one? I'm sorry, should we take a 2-minute break, or are we good? Okay. So we're on item 8.4, discuss / select strategic planning. Thank you to everybody who came tonight. I should apologize for the length of the meeting, but democracy is sometimes slow.
waste of
And
time.
just so folks can know, we can't talk between meetings, so we have to have these long meetings sometimes. Thank you, everyone who came today.
My time. 3 of them want to do it. Busy that day.
I've been wanting to visit for over a year.
Well, you just don't drop in.
I know, that's
You know,
why I waited.
But it's not that they're hiding the culture.
I told you, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so item 8.4, discuss / select strategic planning facilitator. Ms. Holte, care to lead us on that one?
Yes. This brief, it's been a long night. I believe Commissioner Meyer, who had requested, I believe in January of 2024 for the board to consider having a strategic planning session. So with that, previously I brought forward a proposal from David Drone and Associates, which I believe was for $8,000. The board asked that I do additional research and bring back other options. So in this proposal or discussion, I should say, Minnesota County's Computer Cooperative, MCCC Executive Director, Lisa Meredith. So she actually is trained in this type of facilitation, and she actually just did this with Freeborn County. So if you have cohorts there that you can contact and talk with to see how that turned out for them, feel free to do so. There would only be the cost for travel, mileage, hotel, meals, that kind of thing. Lisa obtained permission to do this without additional charge for us. This is a one-time. We're the last county that they're offering that opportunity. They're going to start charging for it in the future. So if we decide to go with Lisa, please know that there'd be 2 people. And again, it would just be the travel and meals, that kind of thing. They are asking that we would have breakfast and lunch for the people participating in the event. So that would be the cost. I don't have an exact dollar amount, but you can pretty much ballpark that. Project Find, we do have material in the packet. The plus side to that is we've worked with Fatima Syed a number of times. I think they would do an excellent job. The benefit there is they do know Winona County, so it's a little bit of a advantage there. The Thriving Workplace with Diane Amundsen, I think some of you might remember Diane. She actually did work with the county previously as well. So there are a couple different things for discussion. One being does the board desire to do a total relook at the strategic plan or a refresh? You know, basically look at what you currently have, fine tune it, and move forward kind of thing. Total refresh is going to take more time, but there are different folks on the board who have different views and perspectives, different desires of goals and outcomes. So it's really up to the board. What is your desire? I am going to ask that as part of the consideration that we also give thought to what resources might be needed to implement the desired outcome. The previous strategic planning sessions that I have participated in, that wasn't part of the conversation. To establish a goal, strategic plan, we have to think about how we're going to get there. And if we're not willing to put the tools, resources, technology, et cetera, I mean, I think it's important that we have that conversation as part of the strategic plan as well. So thoughts, questions?
I would schedule it in January of 2025. We will have a new board, good, potentially. We may
Potentially.
have three, we may have three new members to this board.
Yep.
So
Are you not interested until then?
not really, because I know what the philosophy and the goals of this board are. Having a breakdown session and sitting there and grinding through it isn't going to change anything. So let's wait till we got a new board and then
So you're not interested in even just a review?
send it out. I think, was there something
It's
here?
in the packet.
Yeah, there was some stuff in there. Yeah,
Can we try one meeting and see how it goes?
I think I'm busy that day.
Commissioner Ward.
I don't see with the lack of, I'm very frustrated, always have been, so why spend time trying to come up with a kumbaya message and that it doesn't work for me. I'm sorry.
Mr. Sensal?
Just real quickly, when I came in, you asked me to take a look, from the outside of the county. There's a misalignment with resources and what you're asking us to do. Commissioner Vagley, you mentioned it all the time. Things come down, like Commissioner Elsing. We get a grant, it goes away. Now the county owns the bill and everything else that goes with it. And so the need for a strategic plan isn't necessarily about you all agreeing. It's about getting the resources over the next 5 to 10 years to accomplish that. And you're not going to be able to do it all in 1 year. There's no way that this county is going to up and hire 20 people next year. We have, how many FTEs have we had in the last 5 years? One, if that.
Actually, we're even. Since 2019, we are not up at all.
There needs to be a systematic plan to address resources to the tasks that are out there. And tonight we added a couple more. And I think that's what
Possibly.
the administrator is asking for, is what is it we need to do and what messages do we need to communicate to the county? That's kind of what we're lacking is, there are opinions here, but somehow that's got to coalesce into a strategic attachment to make something happen over 5 to 10 years. Man, we can't kick it down the road, not to 2025.
But the faces and the names and everything are going to change, and possibly the philosophy. So if you're going to set a philosophical direction, it will change. So again, I just know it will change.
I understand, but you're going to break the team here. By that, I mean, the work that they're doing is above and beyond what they're hired to do. And somehow that burden's got to be eased by either prioritizing a task, deprioritizing a task, or looking at where we fund or find funds and how we eat the elephant one bite at a time. But we're not healthy. We're a good group. We have a lot of great workers. Everybody is doing what we ask them to do. But I just ask you to step back and say, where do we want to be in 10 years?
Commissioner Meyer?
You come leading?
I've done it before. I would leave that up to the group, but I want to see you succeed. I will actively participate in any manner that you ask.
Could we try one time with the Minnesota County Computer Cooperative folks, see how it goes, and then go from there? So it would be basically mileage, hotel.
Where are they from? That's what, where are they located? Where are they coming from?
The cities.
Oh, that's all it is. Okay.
And then go from there. And yeah, this isn't about Kumbaya, it's about what Mr. Sansala just said.
Second.
Oh, he can't make the.
I know.
I can't make
I would support making a motion that we would try one session with the MCCCC or MNCCC.
I'll second.
further discussion. Michelle, I'm sorry, did you?
No.
Michelle, would you?
It depends on when the date is and where I'm at. I'm scheduled out a long ways, but I mean, I can't, I guess if we're open for discussion, I can't necessarily disagree with Commissioner Ward. I believe there's probably a set agenda here that we may or may not have an influence on, but I also can agree with Scott's point of saying that, you know, it might change, it may not change. So we also can't discount it. As I see an expansion of government over and over and over, spend. We got to figure out where we're going to get it. And we got to figure out where we're going to get the staff to do it. Whether I like it or not, it's happening, and here we go. So I guess we better take a look at it. That's part of our job. So I'm going to support it, I guess.
I will be checking with Freeborn County to see what they did and where they got out of it. But right now, I think it's not a high priority for me.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion to try one session, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
So am I correct? Motion passes 4-1. But that takes us down to what was, I believe Mr. Alcine had pulled, was it 7.5?
Yep.
Approve local option sales tax referendum.
Yeah, so just a couple of comments I have on that. You know, is a sales tax perhaps, you know, and again, I don't know all the ins and outs of this, so please, as any time I want to do right, not be right. So correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things that I just wanted to discuss with this is that we can sell the public on this, because I'm assuming, you know, with this referendum, we need to sell the public on this, right?
Yes.
It's another tax increase on top of the record tax increase, on top of talking more of a tax increase, talking about all the things that Mr. Sansala just brought up. Are they really going to believe us? Oh, this is it. This is it. This is the one. This is the last one. I mean, at what point does the public just say, wow, you know, when does it end? And now, you know, obviously we know we got to do something with the LEC. So my question is as a board that's wanting to continue to do these things and all the things, and obviously as he said, now it's taking more staff and we just keep adding and adding and adding and adding and adding. At what point does the public just say, yeah, I don't know, for lack of better terms, we don't believe you? Because it's this one and it'll be the next one and the next one. And every time we bail you out, you come back asking for more. So my question is how are we going to sell the public on this? We brought up earlier that, you know, at what point do they just say we don't trust the county commissioners anymore? So that's a genuine question. I'm trying to figure out, or do we think we're actually going to win the battle? Do we think we're going to get this? And what's the collective scope to sell this?
I'm not, just to clarify what this is doing, if this were to pass, it would shift the payments for the jail off of property tax.
To the sales tax.
To the sales tax.
Right.
So you would add one tax and take another one away.
Correct, which I agree that this is a good thing.
Okay.
I don't disagree that it is. I just don't know if the public is going to understand this, and are we actually going to gain the support?
Well, hopefully we'll have 5 commissioners explaining what it is and what's going to happen.
I believe we can do that, but I think the discourse is that they're saying, well, robbing Peter to pay Paul, this could be a good thing, but what's the next thing? You're just pushing the tax burden from here to here now, which opens up the back door to go add some more to the property tax. That's my fear, that we're kicking the can this way, they just say, well, you're just moving it this way, which is a good thing, but you're gonna say, well, look, now we created dollars here and we can fill the hole back up again. That is my thing, and that's really what I think the bigger challenge is gonna be for us is at some point, we gotta stop just spending it and say, all right, we're here to be, we're fiscally managing your money better than this. And so running this by a few people and all saying, every one of them saying, yeah, this would be a good thing. It's a good opportunity to take care of, to put it on to travel and leisure and maybe college kids or whatever the different things that I've heard. But the first thing that people say is, well, it just opens up the back door to spend more on this side now. And so there's got to be some sort of recourse to that. And the reality of it is I can't assure them it isn't going to happen. So
Thank you.
that's just my comments.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, I've met with the local housing association. Matter of fact, I met with them several times before the jail was even built, and this was always an option that was going to be explored. And they've wholeheartedly endorsed it. So I do think we should follow through with it. So.
And I agree.
I'm sorry.
Well, this is something that I put out there before the bricks and mortar were ever set in the ground. And unfortunately, just by timing, we're behind the project. I mean, the project is up and running. And I understand where Commissioner Elson is going, is the trust to seriously take this off the property tax rolls, because I wanted, unfortunately, it said it couldn't happen. I wanted on the last tax statement, a particular line that said bonding for the county jail on our tax statement, so that people knew exactly what it was. And then when we say we're taking it off, it would come off.
Exactly.
Now the lines are blurred. And unfortunately, I think in one earlier session, Commissioner Meyer alluded to that, maybe if we got this, we wouldn't be cutting the levy, that it creates opportunities for other things, which again, that is not what I had intended at all, is that the sales tax would reduce the local levy. The one thing that I guess is unclear, it says we can't spend any, where does it say that? We can't spend anything to
Advertise it.
advertise it. So how, school boards get around it by using teacher unions and such. So how do we educate people?
That's my fear, is how do we do this?
Put it on our website. Other counties have put it on their website. I mean, I researched this and putting the question together, like Itasca, and I'm trying to think of the other county. They had a really good website educational piece. I mean.
Well, but
not
I'm
gonna-
sorry,
I mean,
you just saw this evening, how many of my Winona County residents don't have good internet. So we're depending on a website to educate
I
people.
saw that most of the residents went on.
No, Winona did, not rural Winona County.
Well, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but
I
anyway,
mean,
we're assuming
it's-
they're gonna look
yeah,
at
we're
the
not
website.
supposed
What
to,
else can we
we're
do?
not supposed to lobby. We're not supposed to, we can have an education campaign. And I don't know, get it's really up to the.
Campaign is inappropriate.
Okay,
If I
fine, yeah.
understood the
Yeah.
law, we
Right.
could not do.
Yeah, there's all this, that's my thing. How do we actually do this?
Commissioner go out and have a public,
Public meeting about it, sure.
as an individual,
Just so you don't have money spent on donuts and coffee.
copy, but you could provide, I mean, it's unclear to me how we're going to sell this.
Well, I
Because it has to be sold.
I think it'd be great to have informational sessions, have a set
Yeah.
number.
Education,
Right,
but we have to be careful about how we do it.
right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just like school boards can have informational
I
sessions.
realize, I know this is kind of going open
I
session
apologize,
here,
yep.
so I don't know if that's okay, if you're okay.
But I guess let's haul it back. So Commissioner Elsie and Commissioner Wilson.
I didn't know. So I mean, I was okay with it, but I believe on the
it's the
ballot, we
3-hour
can
rule.
put this will not raise your taxes,
Correct,
correct?
and that's what's on the
And-
question.
And then, so we have that, at least when somebody does come, they can say, well, looks good, right?
Fun stuff.
But
It's on the question.
yeah, so I mean, I would say by default, that should help, but I still think very similar to the road tax and things like that, I The question is how are we going to create public awareness? And then the few people I've asked have said, well, it's just open up the back door that, okay, it lowers our property tax. And then, okay, we now just fill that right back up. So now we're double taxed.
Well, and I imagine maybe the Winona Post might publish some article about it, right?
Possible.
But
The referendum.
Now you're understanding why we bring this up.
Chelsea, are you finished?
Yes.
That's Commissioner Olson, Commissioner Ward.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the local option sales tax referendum resolution for financing of replacement jail.
Welcome by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Meyer. From further discussion, Commissioner Ward.
Okay, so is this, how will it look on, to me, it's very important how it looks on a ballot. Because just the way it said here on page 76, you know, it's
Yes or
shall you impose a 1/4 and it's yes or no. So they're gonna make the decision right there. And then the second paragraph says by voting, you are voting to increase, but to pay, you know. So again, just the way it's even on the ballot, are you gonna quick check yes or no and not
Can we
read the
read?
rest of it?
Sorry.
Yeah, so I don't know if it can be flipped or is this how does it appear on the ballot?
This was similar to what the other counties used. In fact, I think it was Itasca had 3 questions. Because they had 3 projects that the sales tax would pay for. So that's what they had here. I mean, I didn't, reinvent the wheel other than to add the information, just a little information about the fact that what the Winona County Jail, what this is replacing.
So can we get clarity what it will look like on the actual ballot?
I think we can.
I'm here if you have questions.
I'm speaking to Chelsea. Yeah. How
Yes, this is Chelsea. So in part of this, working with Karen, we are way ahead of the ball for when I have to report this to the state. When I have to report it to the state is 74 days before the election, general election, and that puts us mid to end August is when it needs to be officially submitted to me, and I have to officially submit it to the state. The way Karen and her team have it laid out here is, yes, that question, it'll read, shall Winona County impose a 1/4 of 1%, 0.25% sales tax, et cetera. It'll go to yes or no. And then that portion below it would be in similar fashion to when a school has a referendum where it has to say, it has to read, this will, a yes vote will be voting for an increase in property taxes. In a similar fashion, that portion down below the yes or no would also be on the ballot as an explanation that this is not going to increase your property taxes.
I'm fearful people will just they won't bother to read the rest of it. They will have their mind made up before they.
Commissioner Elsie.
Just for clarification, Chelsea, this is Commissioner Elsie. So if we vote on this motion, does that set the verbiage for what goes on the ballot, or is what goes, I'm just trying to understand. Can we change the verbiage on the ballot as we get close to the 74-day window?
I believe the intent of this resolution is to set the verbiage that will be on the ballot. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct.
Attorney Solomon.
And we have to do it by resolution, and that's why I drafted the resolution. And so, yeah, on page 76 there says the title and language of the question shall be presented as follows.
Mr. Elton, follow up with that. I guess this is a question to the board, all realizing this is a good thing. I think. Are we happy with the verbiage? Is this the way we want to see it? And how much discretion? I mean, do we have to make a decision on this tonight? Part of why I brought this up, because I thought maybe this would spur a good conversation. Can we change it? Do we need to make a decision now? Is there some thought that want to be given to it? I don't know. I'm in the dark here.
Ms. Sonman, can we even change it? Usually I mean, I would like to, consider the idea, but aren't you often, aren't this language, isn't it always very prescribed and very,
Not really. I mean,
if we can, yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you want to move the yes and no down to the bottom, I don't think that's a problem.
I'd like to see him, I'd like to see him read everything and then make the decision.
That's fine. I mean,
That would be my recommendation.
If we could do that, absolutely.
that would answer Commissioner Ward's concern about.
Yeah, they got to at least look through something before they check the yes or no box.
Right. And then have sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
So it would be a little box. I couldn't get the bottom.
Right. Yeah.
We need to finish Commissioner Olson's.
You would increase the.
I would,
just
well,
the
I
election
support
rate.
I can make a motion if you'd like to reject, or we got to vote yours down, I think, though, don't we? Sorry.
Or make a-
Or you can,
Friendly,
a friendly amendment.
I could, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll make a friendly amendment.
the yes and no down to the bottom of the question.
what else did we do?
I've been trying to get the floor back.
Commissioner Mark?
Thank you. So do you want to entertain, and is it possible to put in any verbiage that indicates that this is to pay for the bonds, the annual bond service fee, and that if it isn't passed, that will remain on the property tax levy? I mean, do you want to try to add that language?
Can we procedurally ask the person who made the motion and the seconder to, if they would like to withdraw it, and then we could table it?
Yep,
and
I'm
come-
fine, I'm fine.
Yep, I'm fine.
Let's do that.
And I'd like to make a motion to table this and explore some
Bring it-
options.
Yeah,
I'm
bring it back.
Bring it back and.
gonna make a motion to table item 8.5.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Elting, second by Commissioner Ward to table, bring it back with proposed revised language. Any other discussion? I think that's a great idea. Thank you for doing that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? A motion to table passes 5-0. Next item, which was 7.10, approve Economic Development Authority recommendation to conduct feasibility study for a farmer's market food hub. Mr. Ward.
Yeah, and I guess, what are we looking to get out of this report? Or apparently the Economic Development Authority discussed it.
Mhm.
I didn't, of course, we don't see their meeting minutes till later, so I didn't see any of the discussion about what's the goal of is it just to sell Farmer Jones half a basket of tomatoes, or is it trying to allow the, and I saw something about the food service, like the hospital or the schools or something. I mean, what do we expect after we do this study?
Expect to provide the community with some information as to whether a food hub would be feasible and could be able to be established in Winona County. So the study would include interviews of producers as well as and buyers. So we'd be focusing on institutional buyers like school districts, higher education, hospitals. People are larger buyers and connecting the buyers with the producers. Right now, there's a lot of buyers who are looking at trying to get more local foods into their and buy locally. Get more local foods into their cafeterias and food service. But they have, a dozen sellers or producers that they need to buy from. So they're calling individual farms and farmers, and it's just really good for them to make those connections and then have enough from each one to serve to their in their cafeterias and to their clientele. So this would, a food hub would allow them to producers to pool resources and buyers to go to one place to make their purchases. And that would keep more money local and provide more money to producers, increasing economic development.
So is this, am I picturing a building or just a internet presence?
A lot of it is internet-based. A food hub usually does have a building, and it has transportation, trucks that would be involved to go around to the different producers, collect the product, store it. We're not talking about that type of a food hub. We're talking about a farmer's market food hub, which is harnessing the power of the farmer's market. Producers who are already going there, they're already there at a certain time. They can bring their product, they can sell their product that is left over from the farmer's market. And the producers can then come and pick up and get it at the farmer's market while they're already there. So it kind of cuts out the need for infrastructure. There's still a need for generally what we've seen is like trailers to house a lot of the product at the farmer's market, but it's a lot less of an investment than a traditional food hub would be. And so farmers market food hubs have become a bit more popular just because they're easier to create and have less resources that are needed to establish.
And do we have models of success of this
We do, and
scale? I mean, I understand, farmers markets, in my opinion, are great, but they're small scale. And to scale up for industrial food distribution and production and capabilities is a whole nother big
that's
ballgame.
why, I mean, it's a big jump to make. And it's hard to know whether it would pay off and work.
So has anybody really made it pay off and work?
Yeah, yep. There are examples across the state. A lot of them are subsidized from Minnesota Department of Agriculture. We had Sarah George from Wabasha County come and talk to us, and she's been a state leader with establishing and talking about farmers market food hubs across the states as well as in Wabasha. Wabasha does have one. A lot of our institutions are buying from Wabasha at the moment. So a lot of that money is already going outside of the county. What we don't know is, we just don't know. Is it regionally? Is it saturated already? Rochester already has a farmers market food hub as well. They have a really large food farmers market. We just don't know, can the region sustain another one? Is there enough demand here? And is there enough product here? Enough desire from producers to band together to make it work?
The feasibility study.
So that's where the feasibility study.
So right now, you got SHIP dollars, which came from Department of Health, the 5,000, and then it's just what, your time?
There's a 10% match, and that would come from
The staff timing?
And see, listen, our economic development specialist.
Okay, so indirectly, but not a direct cash, and not an additional cash outlay for us to do this study.
Commissioner Nelson.
When we say here, what does here mean? Winona?
Winona County, I mean, the farmer's market that we would use would probably be Winona. Just because it's the biggest, has the most infrastructure. A big question is who's gonna staff it? The Winona Farmers Market would probably be in a better position to be able to finance that or.
What's the government's role? What's the taxpayer's role in this? Because I can tell you right now, nobody's gonna drive from Elwood to come all the way down here that has to fund something that has zero benefit to them. I mean,
Our role, I think, at this point is just providing information to the public, connecting people, setting people up to be able to make those decisions. We're not really looking at, the model isn't for there to be an employee in the future that would manage from the county that would manage the food hub.
Right.
That would have to be private.
And most of the producers would be from the region, the general, the county. They're not, the producers aren't in the city of Winona. The producers are from all over the county.
Well, Mike, just relevant to this question is I mean, I pretty well know this county and there aren't that many vegetable producers in the Winona County.
There are getting less.
Yeah, there's very few. Most of this is happening outside of our county, guys. That's the reality. I work with vegetable producers. I have a 5,000 acre pickle farm and I work with 2 acre vegetable producers to give you the scope. Okay. So at the end of the day, I can tell you the majority of this product's not coming from Winona County. However, I could see this as a very big benefit to the city of Winona or the region of that, because I believe, as the city approached and look at this and said, hey, chances are this is going to be a pretty big benefit to a very regionalized area. Do we want to look at it as a county aspect, or would it be more beneficial for the city to look at something like this? Because chances are they're going to benefit from the building, the infrastructure, all these things. I'm not trying to kick the can over there, but I mean, I'm just looking at this realistic going, hey, we're going to ask a bunch of people to fund something or potentially chip in on something that they're never even going to use.
Yeah, I don't think that, at this point, just for the feasibility study, nobody's chipping in for, or making any financial commitments. And I think the study will give us some answers, and, if we hand that off to, the city of Winona afterwards, so be it, or just to the private enterprise.
Yeah. I see this more of potentially as a city thing than a county thing. I couldn't tell you one.
I mean, there's certainly, producers in the county that would take advantage of it.
I'm sure there's a couple, yes. I'd be literally a couple.
Grow kids and create a market where there's not as much of one.
I'm not against them. I like it. I like local grown food. Don't get me wrong. It's just, I think this is a city thing. If you were saying, hey, let's go do this at Lewiston, centralize it. Okay, catch my attention, you know?
It's
But
hard to justify driving.
people
20
aren't going to
miles
drive up
away
to Lewis. What would be the first thing you would say? People aren't going to drive to Lewis. Well,
Yeah.
why would any of my constituents drive here?
To add to that, Commissioner, we're also with the EDA having discussions with Winona, Lewiston, and St. Charles school districts about moving towards like bulk purchases, institutional buyers, et cetera. So my hope is that it's truly countywide, but this is a food hub and it's just a feasibility study and maybe what it will show us. And there are other existing models. I can get you more information if you would like later on, but we'll see where it goes from there. But we're also working on the idea of there's farm to school dollars at both the state level and federal level that hopefully we can access as well. Lou and I went to Lewiston 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, et cetera, and met with food service directors. And they're very interested in
Oh, yeah, 100%.
whenever possible.
And I think that's
Right
a
now.
whole separate
Walls is giving them free food, so it's a hard thing
Free
to
food.
pass too.
out of my left pocket.
And then how many $5 tomatoes do you have to sell? to Make $5,000, you know?
They're good. I like them.
Is there a motion on the table for this one? I don't think so.
To approve.
$3.
I'll move to approve this item to approve the Economic Development Authority recommendation to conduct a feasibility study for the Farmers Market Food Hub.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Both. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
That takes us down to, I think, just comments, right? Did anyone else have a comment beside me? So two things, and I'll be quick. And Commissioner Ward, please jump in with the first one. The Law Enforcement Center / Public Safety Task Force. We have our next meeting scheduled for Wednesday, the 28th. It may or may not be the last one. We're trying to wind it down, but we may need more information and we may need more time. But the goal would be is to eventually wind the conversation down and then bring back a recommendation or recommendations or options back to the county board and back to the city council. Is that fair to say, Commissioner Ward? Second thing is, it's been a long time since we met last. I'll make this quick. I'm not going to give a campaign speech. I just want to clarify that, like Commissioner Jacob, I am running for state office, and like Commissioner Jacob, I'm going to stay on the county board all the way through the end of December, serve on all the committees and do all the other work. So some people in the community have asked me, will I stop teaching? Nope. Will I stop on the county board? It depends on what happens in November, but I'll be here through the end of December. So that's all I'll say about that. With that, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ellison, seconded by Commissioner Ward. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned.
So with your last comment, if you're really confident that you're gonna win.
I'm not confident. I'm not even sure if I can pass the primary.
Avoid a special election, sure, you could just pick somebody to run. Before.
See who worked on that.
I wish there was a way to get Josh's seat filled faster. It seems to be you have to wait that.
Words out, I was expecting the.
Totally agree now, yeah.
Process.
Especially if there's a primary. Oh my God, that went from May until August in it or whatever.
You know, the sun.